All right, I call this meeting of the Pearland Independent School District Board of Trustees to order on January 21st, 2020 at 4:10 p.m. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. Let the record show that trustees Carbone, Murphy, Gooden, Floyd, and Barry are present. The Board of Trustees of the Pearland Independent School District will now convene into a closed meeting to discuss the following items as posted on our agenda this evening, allowed by Title V. Right now, we're going to go in and we are going to talk about the superintendent's annual superintendent evaluation, contract, salary, and benefits. We will reconvene at 5 o'clock in public session to start the public comment and the rest of the meeting. So no voting will take place in closed section. Any action the board wishes to take as a result of discussions in closed session will take place after the board reconvenes in open meeting. It is now 4:11 p.m. and the board will stand adjourned. All right, the board will reconvene in open session at 5:07 p.m. We will go directly into public comment. This is the portion of the board meeting where the board receives input from patrons. Each person who addresses the board will have 3 minutes to speak on his or her issue. In accordance with state law, the board must, well, I'm going to skip that. All right, we will not be able to, because of topic posting requirements of the Open Meetings Act, board members will not ask questions of the patron and will not answer any questions posed to the board by the patron. No action can be taken on any issue presented during the patron comment segment of the board meeting. Patrons addressing the board will be notified when they are approaching their last 30 seconds of their allotted time to speak. Okay, we have 5 speakers this evening. First, Ms. Miller. Is that Tashira? Tashara, come on up. The floor is yours, ma'am. Oh, yeah, right there at the podium. And there's a microphone right there for you.
Okay.
All right. Whenever you're ready.
All right. Hi, my name is Tashara Miller, and thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to share some words with you. I graduated from Dawson High School in May 2019, and I was involved in the Rise Mentorship Program, and I'm very grateful to have so many adults to be there for us and to do a whole lot of things for us while I was there. But I feel like we can do a whole lot more like we are. When I got to thinking about the dress code in our schools, it bothered me that a lot of students violate it, but it seemed to me that only the brown students were the ones really being policed by it. Once I got ISS for wearing ripped jeans that I'm wearing today, and it felt as if when I was in there, there was only, brown kids in there. And I saw a student wearing a Confederate flag shirt in the AP office, and no one was saying anything to her at all. So it just made me feel really bad just to know what's going on here, because I feel like, is it being enforced, or is it a discriminacy informing thing? I'm not sure. And also ISS, it denies students the right of an education because you sit there in silence. The teachers do not work with you, and they hand you worksheets on lessons that you haven't been taught because you're not in class. So you have to complete them without even being in that class. And I know from my brother's experience that they don't even have accommodations for children that have learning disabilities, that they don't walk them through and have someone there, because if you raise your hand, they're not going to go. So how would someone that has ADHD know what to do? And our young minds are changing, and we are more inclusive of the diversity of our communities, and we can take notice when adults should be setting examples and when they're not. Change can be a scary word for those who have been conditioned to doing things the same way over and over again, and we often feel that the criticism of how we're handling our matters are personal attacks. And for that reason, I think it seems many leaders in our district are more focused on their outward appearance and avoiding controversy than doing the right thing. We cannot continue to allow this, and it's harming a lot of students. If I learned nothing else from my time with the RISE program, it's to reach, inspire, support, and empower. One needs to put their own ego aside and be ready to listen and learn. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next speaker will be Jessica Schaefer. Schaefer, S-H-A-F-E-R. Thank you, ma'am. The floor is yours.
The simple spelling. Hi. First, I'd like to say that the district has done a commendable job attempting to make the dress code standardized for all students, but I feel it still needs some more work. For starters, a big complaint I have is that students above 6th grade can't wear shorts and skirts. I don't understand this at all. In a hot environment like Pearland, I think it's completely ridiculous. Additionally, the exclusion of stretchy pants, leggings, sleeveless shirts, form-fitting, and tight clothing clearly communicates to students that their bodies are distracting and require modification to desexualize them. I believe we need to start at the youngest ages, making it clear to kids that they alone are responsible for their actions, and that being distracted by another person's body or clothing is not acceptable. This is where rape culture begins, ending with the question to a victim of, well, what were you wearing? If you can't see the connection, then I ask you to look harder. I also feel these guidelines are more likely to be biased against people of color and low-income individuals. I agree with the concerns voiced by others today and previously in a variety of media platforms. Lastly, I feel the exclusions of apparel and accessories with occult images and death images are frankly unnecessary. Occult could indicate anything from unicorns to devils, while something like Day of the Dead imagery could be culturally appropriate, which is yet another biased view against people of color. My overall message for this board is that I agree that our children's safety should be paramount, but nitpicking clothing, hair, and accessories under the guise of preventing distraction in school is unnecessary, wasting everybody's time, money, and patience. Sending kids home or to different parts of the school because their hair and clothing sends a message, sending them away, basically, because they think that their hair and clothing sends a message that the way they look is more valuable than their education is ridiculous, and I don't want to live in a district that promotes that kind of mentality. I hope you'll take my comments into consideration, and I'd like to make it clear that I'm willing to work with the board in any way I can to improve these rules. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, Mr. Howard. Eugene Howard? Nobody see him? Okay. Okay, Adrian Carter.
Hi, my name is Adrian Carter. I'm a junior at Dawson High School here in Pearland, and I just have a few things to say about the same topic as everyone else has been talking about. Over my time in the district, I've experienced quite a bit of leniency in regards to rules as a white male. Most often, I've noticed the leniency is in relation to dress code. While the dress code is loosened considerably this year and my typical attire is now within the rules, I had never gotten in trouble for wearing minorly ripped jeans or t-shirts with large designs on them which were previously out of the dress code. Some of my non-white classmates, however, did not seem to receive the same slack that I did. Quite a few of my previous teachers would often have other kids marked down for some of the same dress code violations that I was making at the exact same time. This also encompasses IDs. I, like every other high school student, have forgotten my student ID at home on one or more occasions. Much like my clothing, it appears that my teachers notice the lack of an ID on an African American or Hispanic student far more than they do on me. It could be argued that they simply did not notice my clothing or ID, but that in itself highlights the issue. These problems extend beyond the dress code, though. As many other supporters of the Peoria County NAACP resolution have pointed out, discrimination affects plenty of other facets of our education. I would also like to make it abundantly clear that I don't intend for other white people to take offense to this. I certainly understand how this can come off as an attack, but the main point I am attempting to make is that people are often blinded by their lack of experience with an issue. This can lead to the denial that there even is an issue, leaving someone complicit in times of discrimination. Overall, as someone who has been in Pearland ISD schools for all of my life, I would love to see it become a better place to learn for all of its students, and I would be happy to help any way that I can. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Mr. Howard, floor is yours, sir. Eugene Howard. Thank you for joining us, Mr. President. Please.
Thank you,
Floor is
Mr. President. And thank you, board members, for taking the time to listen to me today. I just wanted to, again, approach the board in the spirit of humility, in the spirit of humbleness, and to plead to your moral fiber. This resolution, I understand, has gotten its own wheels from different organizations, from different parties. But I stand here as the president of our organization, as the represent spokesman for what the resolution is about. It's not about a Democratic Party. It's not about a liberal, progressive agenda. We believe and we understand that every child deserves to feel safe at school, to feel like they belong. And this is not the time for us to go into our tribalistic corners. That's left, right, Democratic, Republican, liberal, conservative, whatever it might be. We celebrated a great man's legacy yesterday in Dr. King. Dr. King said the time was always right to do what is right. Now, I find it, with my last 90 seconds, as I sit here to speak, you know, I was doing some reading this morning, and in 1968, in May of 68, Dr. King's Gallup poll approval rating was horrible. Many criticized it. Many, like, you don't know what you're talking about when it comes to the Vietnam War. You're just supposed to be about civil rights. You're not about. Dr. King's message changed from I have a dream to we need our check. The establishment didn't appreciate that. The Fair Housing Bill just sat in Congress. I mean, I'm talking to educators. If I'm wrong, please, you know. But after April 4th in Memphis, Tennessee, Dr. King took a bullet, and they tried to kill the man, but the man's legacy, they immortalized him. And I stand here before you saying, like, I don't want it to have to be an incident to where we have a press conference and bells and whistles. We have an opportunity just to do what's right. We have the opportunity to lead the pack. Pearland is a great school district. I have never criticized the attempts to educate children. I'm just imploring to you to take their educational experience, social experience, into consideration. So with that, I know all you are good people, and I implore the goodwill of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Next, Dr. Murphy.
Hi, thanks again, everyone. I'd like to actually cede my time to Pastor Joseph Yu.
Dr. Murphy, let me ask, Pastor Yu, we are more than happy for you to sign up and speak. Were you not able to get here in time?
I got here at 4:50, and the car was gone.
Carlos, let's go ahead and let's get you a forum. Let's get
Okay.
you signed up. We can do that afterwards, but please speak. Dr. Murphy, if you want your 3 minutes, let's go ahead and do that. But I know we did that last time around, but I'd rather not start that process of signing up, holding the spots, seating time. We'll get you squared away, okay?
Okay,
All right, go
great,
ahead.
thanks. Sure. So I guess I can talk about today the incident in Barbers Hill ISD. I don't know if you guys are aware, but there was a young, again, African-American student, male, who was threatened with not being able to walk in graduation because of his dreadlocks being too long. And I heard a little bit of the school board meeting last night. It happened last night. I was unfortunately not able to make it. But the gentleman who was presumably on the school board said basically that their dress code does not outlaw cornrows, dreadlocks, anything that would be a culturally relevant hairstyle, right? But that it had to do with the length of this gentleman's hair. Somebody had commented that women are allowed to wear our hair at any length, and we're not policed about the length of our hair. There are so many rules that just make absolutely no sense. And honestly, when they get enforced in a discriminatory way, and that's evident if you look at who gets in trouble, right, which is reported to the Office of Civil Rights of the Department of Education. It happens in our district. It happens in many districts. And I think it's something that we ought to take very seriously. It's not something that is necessarily particular to this district, although it is for African American students a little bit worse here than it is in some surrounding districts. And I don't think we should always be trying to be better than the least of the districts. I think that we should aspire to be the best. So that is what I am asking you all to do, is to consider this, that this is how this dress code is being implemented. So we really ought to think seriously about how we can change that, who we can bring into that conversation, so that moving forward we do this in an equitable way. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy. All right, Pastor. The floor is yours, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Joseph Yu. Last name is Y-O-O. And I am a Korean American. My wife is a Korean American. We have adopted a son through the foster system who is half white, half Mexican, and is autistic. And I share that with you, saying that we moved to Pearland from California because of its diversity and of its reputation of its school system. And I'm thinking that this, for me, this dress code violations goes a little bit deeper than what people are wearing. And it just seems to be honed in on persons of color. The thing about Pearland is we're only going to get more and more diverse. And whether we like it or not, people of different ethnicities, different life stages, they're just going to keep coming to Pearland because it's a wonderful city. And we have an opportunity to address the diversity. We're going to be experiencing growing pains. We will, because different people come in with different perspectives and different things. But we can be ahead of this and start dialogues and help people and help our teachers and help our school officials to implement things that'll be more safe and inclusive rather than oppressive and discriminatory. And all I ask is that we find ways and platforms to engage in these tough discussions about race, about education, about how we deal with people of different political views and different perspectives, and that we can find peace and love and unity in the diversity that we see. And you have, I believe, more authority and power to make changes happen. And I put all my trust and my kids' trust and faith in you guys to hopefully find ways where we can be open and discuss things in a loving and open way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. All right, Mr. Yu was our final speaker in public comment. The Board of Trustees of the Pearland Independent School District will now reconvene into a closed meeting to discuss the following items posted on our agenda this evening as allowed by the Open Meetings Act. We will talk about section 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 082. No voting will take place in the closed meeting. Any action the board wishes to take as a result of discussions in closed session will take place after the board reconvenes an open meeting. And board members, we will start in 3 minutes. It is now 5:24 p.m. and the board will stand adjourned. All right, the board will reconvene in open session at 6:24 p.m. No voting took place in closed session. Are there any action items or any motions from our closed session?
Yes, Mr. President, I have a couple motions. I move we accept and approve the superintendent's recommendation for employment of personnel as presented.
Second.
There's a motion and second. Motion Bach and second Floyd. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's vote.
Wait,
All in-
I'm sorry. Did we just say that we extend about the
No, no.
super?
No, I'll move.
No, he went to the,
We're going to the personnel one at the end.
Okay,
And then
I'm
go into
sorry.
the
My
middle.
apologies.
no worries.
Okay.
No worries.
Okay, hearing no discussion or other discussion, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 6-0 with Secretary Decker out of the meeting, absent from the meeting. All right, is there another motion?
Yeah, Mr. President, I have another motion. I move and accept that we approve the superintendent's recommendation to name Ajunta Thomas principal of Rogers Middle School.
All right.
I haven't voted.
Second. Mr.
Motion,
Mr.
Bach and
President.
second Floyd. Is there any further discussion?
Oh, we got to.
Make sure we get a vote first.
We got to vote first.
Hearing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Congratulations, man. All right, okay. All right. With that done, Trustee Floyd, would you like to begin your introductory remarks?
If we could start the Pledge of Allegiance first, and then after a brief moment of silence, we can say some few words, but if you would all please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. If you all please remain standing for a moment of silence, just briefly. Thank you so much. I just wanted to say a couple words about the district, and I want to welcome you all here tonight. We had a great start to the new year. I hope you all did the same. We are moving forward in so many different areas. We rehauled our strategic vision and are going back through and making sure that we, being such a great district already, are constantly improving, which is sometimes a hard thing to do, but we're putting our minds to it. We live in a great school district, a great community. We could be more grateful and thankful for everyone who plays a role, not just in making sure this district and our community is great, but making sure that your kids come to school on time and do their homework and have the opportunities to succeed that we all wish they do. Dr. Kelly is not with us tonight, and our thoughts go out to him because his mom passed this weekend, so we miss him and our thoughts are with him. And on that note, thank you all for being here and supporting your children and for doing everything you can for this district. And of course, if any of my colleagues want to say a few words, you're more than happy to, more than welcome. But thank you.
All right. If we have a new principal of Rogers, then that means there was somebody who used to be the principal of Rogers, and that person is here with us, and she is now our director of early childhood education. Did I get that right? Dr. Vaughn, would you please stand and be recognized? Thank you so much. Congratulations. All right. At 6:28, let's start. Go ahead.
I also see that, just wanted to recognize Mr. Craig Slater and his Boy Scout trooper here to attend as part of tonight's meeting. So if they'll please stand.
Outstanding.
Thank you guys for being here.
And we did have the secretary of Danbury ISD who was with us. Is she still here? Thank you for coming. All right. She's on her way to getting her superintendent's certificate, so she had to watch a board meeting. So, this is the most exciting board meeting in town, right? So here we go. Okay.
Mr. President,
Yes, ma'am.
one more thing.
Sure.
I'd be remiss, and I'm sure we're doing extra recognition efforts later in the meeting, but just wanted to say congratulations to our Pearland High School band and their excellent, stellar performance in the Rose Bowl in California on January 1st. Thank you very much for all your work and efforts.
Right on time at 6:30, we're going to start our board recognition session.
Good evening. Pearland Independent School District is home to some of the most talented students in the state of Texas. And now comes the time we like to recognize those students and staff for their achievements, along with our community partners for their generosity. But before we do this, I'd like to ask Deputy Superintendent Nan Weimer to make a special presentation to our board for School Board Recognition Month.
Good evening. January is School Board Recognition Month, and Pearland ISD is proud to have a board that truly shows a year-round commitment to our students and staff. While we see them here at board meetings, doing board business. Our trustees, I want you to know, constantly work behind the scenes. They are visible at all our events. They visit our schools, and they listen. They attend all of our events and take the time to understand the issues impacting our schools so that they can make better decisions that provide the quality education that our students deserve. One example of this is within the year, they have developed a student advisory committee. I love being in there where the students are student reps from different schools that have the time to talk to the board directly and to tell them the things that they'd like to change and the things that they celebrate. It's a great thing that has started here, and we continue to keep that going. These people are business people. They spend their time during the day working in other places, besides being here at school board and being visible at schools. But on top of that, most of them are either alumni, they're totally vested as alumni, some have children in our schools, many belong to community organizations that provide resources to our students, and some even coach sports that our kids participate in. So I know if you're in this district, you've seen these people in many other places. Collectively, this team has 37 years of service and experience on our board. It is my sincere honor to introduce our president, Charles Gooden Jr., with his 6th year of service. Lance Botkin, our vice president and TASB master trustee, in his 7th year of service. I want to mention Mrs. Decker. Rebecca Decker is not here this evening. She's the secretary of the board and TASB master trustee and has 10 years of service with the district. Member Jeff Berry in his 4th year of service. Member Crystal Carbone in her 2nd year of service. Michael Floyd in his 3rd year of service. And member Sean Murphy in his 5th year of service. From our administrators, teachers, staff, and community as a whole, we take this moment to thank each of you for the work you do at Pearland ISD. We couldn't have the student success we have without the dedication and support of this board. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Weimer, and thank you to our dedicated board members. Now we'd like to recognize the other stars of the evening, our students. First, we'd like to recognize Pearland ISD's Special Olympics swim team. These students competed in the Special Olympics aquatics competition in College Station this past fall, and they brought home gold medals. From Pearland High School, swimming the 50-meter freestyle, Abby Grage. The 50-meter freestyle from Pearland High School, George Osorio. Swimming the 50-meter freestyle from Pearland High School, Jessica Rumbaugh. Swimming the 25-meter freestyle, Aiden Maxwell. Swimming the 25-meter freestyle relay, Ruben Nico Mendez. This next young lady swam the 25-meter backstroke, the 25-meter butterfly, and the 25-meter freestyle relay, Juliana Darby. from Dawson High School in the 25-meter freestyle relay, Chase Hansen. Swimming the 25-meter backstroke, Frederick Ramos. Swimming, love it. Swimming the 25-meter backstroke, the 25-meter freestyle relay, Julian Hall. And swimming the 50-meter backstroke, Max McGee. The swim team is coached by Eric Tate. And we also appreciate longtime volunteer Pam McDonald for her many years of service. Congratulations again to our Special Olympics swim team. As Ms. Carbone referenced earlier, we are extremely proud tonight to recognize the Pearland High School Pride of Pearland Band for their representation in the 131st Tournament of Roses Parade. Tonight we have student leaders and drum majors here representing the band, along with their director Joe Munoz, Assistant Director Ken Brown, Assistant Director Nick Giuliani, and Assistant Director Gino Hernandez. The marching band was chosen among 19 other bands from across the globe. The selection process included a variety of criteria, including musicianship, marching ability, uniqueness, entertainment value, and special interest. Here tonight, very quickly, before we have the band come across, we have Mayor Tom Reed here with us tonight to present a proclamation to the band. Mayor Reed, band drum majors.
That's a handsome bunch. You know, it's always a great pleasure to recognize very special organizations, very special people, and also present it to people who are deserving of receiving the message that I'm about to present. It's called a proclamation. Mayors do proclamations. From the Office of the Mayor, City of Pearland. Whereas the Pearland High School Band Program began instructive training for the students in middle school and continue through grade 12. Students in 11 schools, including Pearland High School, participate in the Pearland's ISD Band Program, which provides students with an outstanding music education. And whereas the Pearland High School Band has over 50 years of UIL sweepstakes awards, which recognize bands that have superior performances in marching band, concert band, and sight reading. And the Pearland High School Band has been recognized at national festivals, selected to the Texas UIL State Band Contest, and has been the Texas Music Education Association's Texas Honor Band of the Year. That's something very special. After a careful selection process involving over 100 marching band submissions, the Pearland High School Band was one of 19 chosen and was the only band from the state of Texas selected to march in the prestigious Rose Bowl Parade in California in January the 1st, 2020. The Pride of Pearland's band wowed the crowd with its own rendition of the 1980 hit, Celebrations. We ought to hear that tonight. It's fantastic. And whereas this honor has been achieved through the hard work and dedication of the band's students and the members and the instructors to after-school practice, competing in the regional and band contests around the state and nation, and the 350 members of the Pearland High School Band is comprised of members from wind ensembles, symphonic concert, cadet and prep band with colors guards and all kinds of activities. Now, therefore, I, Tom Reed, by the power vested in me as the mayor of the fine city of Pearland, Texas, do hereby proclaim Wednesday, January the 21st, 2020, as Pride of Pearland 2020 Rose Bowl Parade Day in Pearland. And I ask all citizens, both near and far, to join with me as we recognize and commend the Pearland High School Marching Band for its achievements and extend our support and appreciation to the directors and members of the Pride of Pearland Band for their journey to Pasadena to represent our community in the 20 Rose Bowl Parade. It's given under the hand seal of this day, 21st day of January 2020, and it was a great deal of pride and pleasure that I signed this in recognition of what we have achieved as Tom Reed, your mayor. And I tell you, it's something very special. And what this proclamation really says is, Pearland has a culture in music to develop the students, the programs, and the achievements. And to make certain that we do that, we have won so many activities, so many concerts, so many presentations. And you do that, it's a building process over the years. It happens once in a while that you get to go to the Rose Bowl Parade. It takes that type of background and culture to get you there. They did. Thank you for what you have done. Pride of Pearland, the band.
Hang on. Can we get a picture real quick? Jump in there. You guys jump in. Right. Trying to get a quick picture with the drum majors. There we go. And the drum majors, y'all don't go far. All right, drum majors, thanks. Good job over there. And Mr. Munoz, come say anything, and then we'll introduce the rest of the band. I'm gonna let Mr. Munoz say a couple words, and then we'll have the rest of the student leadership of the band come across.
We just wanted to take an opportunity to thank the board and all the administration in Pearland ISD for all their support. It was many, many hours, many, many miles, and many, many dollars for us to be able to do this. And of course, all of our parents' support. Everywhere we talk about how special Pearland is, what a special community is, and what a special school district that we have. and we were proud to showcase our school district and our Pearland community to the world. So thank you again for being here this evening.
I forgot to say something about the plate. Just those three. Okay. And before the band leaves, I do want to just say one more thing real quick. I was remiss to point out this beautiful plate that was presented to the band from the Tournament of Roses while they were in Pasadena, California. So that's on display at the band hall, but they brought it here tonight in case anyone would like a picture of that or a picture with that, this beautiful commemorative plate. Congratulations again, Pearland Band. Also this evening, the Pearland ISD Angel Tree Project which began in 2013, is a way for the community to provide Christmas gifts to our students in need. This year, the extreme generosity of our community was once again felt, with over 600 kids from across our districts and their siblings able to have a Christmas that they may not otherwise have had. At this time, we'd like to recognize some of those community organizations who sponsored 20 or more of our Angel Tree students. First, we have the Lions Club of Pearland. No. Don't go too far. We're going to get a group picture real quick. Can you round them up? I know. Yeah. Eric, you can round them back up for a picture. We're going to get a group picture real quick. Come on, guys. Yeah. Charles, at the back. Yeah, come on up. While they're getting organized, let me also say that this group of men not only donate to our students, they also go shopping with us, and they help us purchase these gifts for our kids, and we have a lot of fun doing that, so thank you. Make sure you guys can see CISA. Stay on your tiptoes. Miss White. Get in here, Miss White.
Just anybody? Okay.
Oh, careful. Safety rules. Thank you so much. Two more. Thank you so much again to our Lions Club. Our next Angel Tree sponsor is Rotary Club of Pearland. Someone representing the Rotary Club? Here we go. That was good, Buck. That was good. That was good. It was a good wardrobe change. They'll just gather around you. There we go. This. Thank you so much. Next, we have a longtime donor, Tia Artiste Family and Friends. Thank you so much. Nice to see you.
Thank you very much.
There you go. Thank you so much, Ms. Artiste. And then, do we have anyone from Shady Crest Baptist this evening? Or Hope Church? Or First United Methodist? Okay. Are you with First United Methodist? Come on. There you go.
Thank you, I appreciate y'all. I was hoping I couldn't. Good to see you. Good to see you. How are you? All night long, I was hoping I'd shake his hand.
We'll get a group picture real quick. Oh, you were there? Okay, hang on one sec. Hey, he's with the next one. He's with Helen. Yes. We'll just do one together, yeah. There you go. All right.
Make sure Sean's serious.
No, not you, Craig, Jeff. Thank you so much. Thank y'all so much for your donation. One more. And finally, this evening, we'd like to recognize our Pearland ISD Business Office. They recently were recognized by the Association of School Business Office Officials International with the Meritorious Budget Award for Excellence in Budget presentation for the 2019-20 budget year. This is the second time the district has received this prestigious honor by ASBO, a reflection of its commitment to fiscal integrity. Representing the business office tonight, our Chief Financial Officer, Georgianne Carter, Director of Budget Compliance, Yvette Rogers, and Director of Accounting, Tu Pham. There you go, Crystal. Even it out. Good girl. Yeah, take a step that way. Everybody take a step this way. There you go. Oh. Okay. It's all right. Thank you so much. Congratulations to everyone this evening.
All right.
Yes, sir.
I'm actually going to. Okay, great. All right, here we go. We're going to fire back up with the agenda as printed. We're going to try to get through the business so we can get to our report on counseling services, because we can't wait. All right, so I see a lot of counselors in the office. Thank y'all so much. We appreciate y'all. All right,
Awesome.
we're going to get to it as fast as we can. Here we go. Okay. Item 10, the consent agenda is presented as items 1 through 6. Are there any items that any trustee would like to pull for discussion?
Yes, sir, Mr. President. I'd like to pull item 2 regarding P cards, please.
Yes, ma'am. Item 2 is pulled. Anything else? Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6?
So moved.
Motion Floyd, is there a second?
Second.
Second Carbone. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Now, item 2, the approve award of RFP for P-card services. Mrs. Weimer, would you give us a little bit of a presentation on that? Yeah, thank you.
The district is seeking a procurement card service to basically help as a purchasing mechanism. It's going to help basically have more control, expedite, eliminate petty cash use. The P card will help more with those small dollar transactions. So in looking at that, we basically had a committee and put it together. They went through, you can see there on the report, the things that they looked at, and basically to look at the quality and that kind of thing, the price. And so I have Ms. Carter here that can answer the questions. But basically, the committee made up of principals, bookkeepers, and several others that she can tell you on the committee. Basically, we're looking at these items, evaluated it, and came up basically with Morgan Chase, JP Morgan Chase, as the best for the P card. Ms. Carter.
Ms. Carbone, if you had any specific questions, yeah.
Yep. You ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
All
Go
right.
ahead, please.
So some of these questions are going to sound like I'm not in favor of the P card. I am highly in favor of the P card. I think that if I had to guess, there's a lot of extraneous paperwork that goes on with approval and reimbursements and all those kinds of things in the business office. So I think this will help you guys a lot. But just so you know where I'm coming from up front, there's been some ongoing citizen criticism on the Pearland, the city of Pearland side regarding P cards. And I want to make sure that since we're starting this from kind of ground zero, that we have the processes in place to make sure that we're being held accountable for the usage and all those kinds of things. So can you tell me who will have a card once approved from school board this evening?
Sure. So this has actually been in the making for quite a while. We surveyed all our campuses and directors, figure out who is going to need what type of limits, and what have you. So it will be initially up to the department director and principal. Each campus has different needs. Some campuses may only need to be the principal and perhaps a bookkeeper, because if they're going to be the ones, going to buy the donuts in the morning or what have you, they're the ones that need to have the card, right? Some campuses that are larger, like the high schools, you may have more staff that has a P card. Right now we have a petty cash process for reimbursement, and we also have, of course, a regular requisition process, which can take a while. And it's also cumbersome because some of the vendors don't accept POs anymore. Like Kroger doesn't accept POs anymore. Walmart is a hassle to be able to make a purchase from them. So this is basically going to facilitate that process. So it's intended to be for small dollar transactions and some online transactions like registrations, if they're going to a conference, hotel reservations, etc. And so, as I stated, it'll depend. We are finalizing our P card manual, so it's an entire manual with all the internal controls that we need to set in place. We have a lot of safeguards in terms of the actual program. We can terminate a card on the spot. We can, decrease limits, set monthly transactions, daily transactions, per transaction limits. So we have a lot of those type of controls that we can put in place, that we will put in place. And so I can definitely bring the P card manual to the board if that's something that you would like to see. I think it's a good idea that we can get a little bit more of a perspective of what happens in that type of program. I've managed a P card program before, and it works very, very well if it's used for the intended purpose, right? If nobody violates any of the guidelines. And in terms of payment, it's one of the safest ways to pay because this, like MasterCard, what have you, they don't allow just any merchant to be part of the program. And there's fraud policies also that covers us. So there is a lot of benefits to it, but more than anything, the number one reason why we want to implement it is because it's going to cut the time that it takes for a user to obtain their goods from wherever.
So who will have direct oversight over the P card system?
Us in business office.
Okay. And you answered my question about the policy associated with the P card usage, because if I think about personal usage, if I have cash versus if I have a card, I'm much more likely to use a card and more amounts than I might use if I had to use my own cash out of pocket or wait for a reimbursement system. How do we ensure, and is there something in that policy to ensure that spending stays on track with the current reimbursement system that we have, as opposed to getting a little bit more liberal with our spending because we can just swipe a card?
Right, and that's something that we're gonna set as far as the transaction limits. At the beginning, it might be, we're gonna pilot it first. We're not gonna roll it out straight to everybody. We're first going to choose a couple of schools, a couple of departments, and then from there, maybe 2 months into it, we'll decide if we need to tweak any of our processes or procedures and then roll it out. But as far as the transaction limits is concerned, like I said, to begin with, there's nothing gonna be allowed over 3,000 because that's where we require 3 quotes. So we wanna make sure that the purchasing guidelines are followed, right? Technology items, we don't like anybody to purchase technology items without the consent from technology because we gotta make sure that they interface with the system that they have and what have you. So we may allow some of them if they have prior approval. So we're gonna have a list of everything that they can and cannot do. And as far as some vendors, we'll also be limiting, for instance, we have a program with Amazon right now. We don't want anybody to be purchasing straight from Amazon with their P card. So we can set that control as well on a per vendor basis where we don't allow Amazon purchases because we want to make sure that they follow the process that we have for that. So that's an example of the detail of what we can do.
Yeah, I mean, Amazon is a good example because like if you're going to Walmart and picking up a few things, how do I ensure I'm going to see the cost of $53 at Amazon or $53 at Walmart, but I don't have an itemized listing as
That is
previous.
required. So
Okay.
there's going to be a reconciliation process, and in that reconciliation process, we're going to make sure that the itemized receipt is there, that there was no taxes paid. If there was taxes paid, the user is going to have to reimburse us because we're not allowed to pay taxes. So there's a whole bunch of guidelines. And, it may happen that someone doesn't follow the guidelines, well, they lose their privilege. And of course, there can be other consequences depending on the severity of the violation.
So 2 further questions, and then I'll leave it to other board members. Is there a plan for a public review of expenditures on the P card like there is for our check register system?
Yes, we're actually going to be able to post everything, transfer everything to our general ledger.
Okay.
By vendor, by transaction, and what have you, just like you see it right now.
Okay, so it'll be identified P card versus check expenditure or however.
The review process is going to start. The campus secretary or bookkeeper is going to reconcile, obtain all the information from all their campus users, whether it's 1 or 5 or 10. And then there's a workflow within that system that goes to the principal or the director. They'll have to approve it, and then it comes to us. We review it, make sure everything is in line with the procedures, and then go ahead and process payment. And of course, interface it. But we will have the ability to run any type of reports that we want by vendor, by transaction, by date, amount, etc.
And those will continue to be posted like our check registers are currently posted online
because
for public review.
It's a payment, so it's got to be posted.
Okay. And the only other question I have is if we were to table this item tonight and bring it back with the policy manual kind of as a package, would that impede the work that you are hoping to do? Is there a timeline associated
It'll
with
delay it a lot.
approving this tonight?
It will delay it quite a bit because it takes about 6 weeks to just set up the program. And then from there, it takes, well, probably, you're already talking, we're into March by then, end of March because of spring break. And then we'll pilot it. It'll be another 2 months, April, May. So you're talking that it's a great delay. It's something that is highly expected right now by the principals. I've been promising it for a long time. So, but if that's what you wish, then we can do that. It'll just take longer to implement.
Okay.
I have just one question. First of all, great questions, and actually answered a lot of what I had. What is your vision of how large this program is going to be if you indeed succeed in the pilot program?
Well, it's for small purchases, right? What I envision is that it'll reduce the paperwork that we do right now. We're talking about, think about activity funds at all the campuses, right? There's a ton of activity funds. Every purchase comes through purchasing, and we get an invoice. So the volume of requisitions and the volume of invoices for tiny amounts, very small dollar amounts, it's tremendous. I mean, you kind of tend to look at your 80-20 rule, 80% of my purchases are 20% of the budget, right? And so of the non-payroll budget. So we intend to reduce that, but again, the number one purpose is to expedite on the user end the ability to make those transactions.
So this is going to, all transactions hypothetically would be done through P-card?
No.
So how large, how many users do you think are going to be having access to these cards?
It
Is it
will
question?
depend. Thinking it can be based on 23 campuses, let's say an average of three or four per campus. You're already talking about 100.
Right.
And then you have your departments, and so in the departments it will vary. Like for instance, my department, I probably just need one P card, even though we're a staff of 25, right?
Okay.
So it'll depend on the department. Maybe communications needs more P cards because they do more purchases from different local vendors, right? So it'll just depend, but I don't foresee it being more than 150.
Okay.
Which is very manageable.
Right.
Mhm.
Thank you.
You may have mentioned this already, but what's the maximum spend on each P card per transaction?
It will vary, like if you're a principal, if you're a secretary, but very important as well as what is the max spend per month, it's the dollar amount per transaction. So I may set a limit for somebody who doesn't do major purchases, just runs errands. Let's say maybe the maintenance guy that something breaks, they need some screws or whatever, goes to Home Depot and needs to purchase on the spot. Maybe their transaction limit might be $200 on a, per transaction limit. Maybe per day, we don't want them to spend more than 500. And again, all those things will vary because one thing that we will be able to do is that, let's say that somebody is at Walmart and Angel Tree season. That's when we need it the most, right? The card. And we're at Walmart and they're trying to purchase, and it's through donations, the purchase, but we're gonna use the P card. And their limit per month is 5,000. Let's just give an example. And the purchase is 5,200. Well, rather than voiding the entire transaction, they can give purchasing a call and tell us, this is what we're doing, and you authorize it. So on the spot, I'm able to up the limit. They can proceed with their transaction, and then I lower it back again. And that's for any amount, and at any time as well. So if somebody goes out on leave because they're sick or what have you, I lower their limit to 0. So if they're not working during the summer, we lower the limits to 0. So to limit,
Is there any rule or a mechanism to control the sheer number of transactions in any given time period?
Yes, we can set them. That's in the program manager side, which is what we will control.
The reason I ask that is because in our, I've seen that a lot
Mhm.
with businesses that we deal with and
Right.
various types of embezzlement and things of that sort. So they'll go out and some people will just go and just boom, 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 boom,
Right.
boom, get.
And this card is not intended for the person that uses once or twice a year. It's really intended for the person that is responsible for making recurring expenditures.
Okay, are there any further questions?
And it's not like a bottom line account number that we can watch for from an oversight perspective to say, here's the account number now of where those expenditures are coming from a PO system versus when we get the P card, here's the same apples to apples comparison. Is there a specific account number that we would watch for from our oversight
You mean
level?
yeah, well, they're gonna be able to code the account number that is associated with the general ledger, because that's part of the reconciliation process. We gotta code it back to their budget.
But not from the board level. I mean, I know you guys will be watching oversight of the details of things, but if I'm looking at a line item and saying this is our spending now, and this is our spending with implementation of the P card.
We can develop any type of reports.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'd like to make a formal request to see the P
Mhm.
card manual at the board level, if you wouldn't mind. I think that's it.
Let me clarify. I'm more than comfortable with them sending it to us, giving it to us, but I'm not thinking of that as something that we're going to approve. Is that where you are?
That's fine. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Any other discussion? All right. Is there a motion to approve the award of RFP 201113-01 for procurement card services?
I'll make a motion.
Motion
that the
Carbone.
Board of Trustees approves the award of RFP 201113-01 for procurement card services to JP Morgan Chase for the period of January 22nd, 2020 to January 21st, 2025 with the option to renew annually thereafter.
Motion Carbone, is there a second?
Second.
Second Floyd. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 6-0 with Secretary Decker absent. Okay, we'll move into the regular agenda. The first item there for discussion is recommendations and discussion on the 10-year capital renewal plan. Level 1 priority projects. All right, Mrs. Weimer, you want to begin it? Thank you.
Based on the direction of the board, administration compiled a 10-year capital renewal plan, identifying the major capital needs of the district during 1819. The board in October allocated $10 million to establish a capital projects funds to be used to address the identification in the CRP. The business office formed committees with the business office themselves, maintenance and operation, technology, athletics, transportation, fine arts, CTE, basically all of the directors and executive directors to update the plan and establish priorities. So the level 1 priority projects included facilities and grounds, vehicle and bus replacements, athletic and field improvements, maintenance and operations equipment, transportation facility replacements, fine arts, career, and technology as presented here in the agenda. The projects that occur that are over $75,000, I wanted to remind you that those would come again to the board for approval. So we're asking that the Board of Trustees approve the list of projects identified as the level 1 priority in the capital renewal plan.
All right, any discussion?
I have a few questions. Of course. So is there any way we can get our list on a per department basis what those level 1, 2, and 3 expenditures are? And then secondly, I think a few months ago in one of our last rounds of discussion regarding bond funds, we, I think it was the same night we were talking about the facade and such. We approved several HVACs to be updated. I guess which ones of those that we approved at that point, are they not on here? If they're bond fund, because I don't see any HVACs on here.
There's nothing here that is bond funded at the moment.
Well, it says bond on here. Funding source, bond.
Okay.
I mean, those aren't HVAC systems, but
If you would like, I can give you an 8-slide presentation, and I'll probably answer a lot of the questions that you're gonna have.
I just want the list. I mean, that's all I really want.
It's here.
Oh, it's here.
Yeah, you asked about, okay, you asked about a breakdown of the projects by department, right?
Right, so
Okay,
apparently,
so is that, I'm sorry, was that what is on page 45 and 46? Is that not what you're looking for?
He was asking for the 1, 2, and 3.
no, the 1, 2, and 3, yeah.
Okay.
1, 2, and 3. Okay.
So the last time that we discussed the capital projects, the capital renewal plan, I'm sorry, I presented the whole shebang, the whole thing, with a 10-year plan of all the needs. And what we did is that I first met with every individual department and prioritized their needs, and then we met as a committee, all of us, and decided on what really needed to go as priority 1 funding, because everybody has, of course, if you ask me about my department, they're the #1 needs, right? But as a committee, we decided this is what we really need to do. Some items that are now at the end of their useful life and are causing some high maintenance costs to keep up, and some items that just died, so we need to replace them. So what I did here, rather than present to you again the entire 10-year capital renewal plan, I'm just presenting to you the items that are priority 1 in the list. And so they are broken down by department. You have 2 things. I have a short presentation on the process, and we also have a summary by department of, sorry, here you go. of all the priority one projects. And if I can explain here, for example, the first section is facilities. Facilities needs about $5 million. As you can see right there, the majority of that is a roof at Turner High School and Pearland Junior High South. And those items identified with a funding source. CP means capital projects, which is from the 10 million that we allocated. And bond, we're not saying that they have to be funded by the bond project, but those are items that could be funded by the bond project. So as you go through each department, you'll see maintenance and operations, technology, transportation, fine arts, athletics, and career and technology. And then you'll have a funding summary. The total of all projects, regardless of what we're recommending as a funding source, is $7.7 million. And I'm also asking for a $500,000 contingency in case something breaks down and we need to replace it, that I could use capital projects fund. From there, I'm saying that there is a potential $4.3 million that can be funded through bond projects. And I did include in the last slide the current projection of where we're gonna be ending with a little savings in the bond. On top of that savings, there's also about $3 million that we've generated with investment earnings, that all the money that we've been carefully investing to maximize its return. So just right there, there's about $7 million, a little bit over $7 million in savings that are in part of the bond. And then the last one, the grant funding, that one relates to transportation. And of course, anything that we can, we'll be making sure that we utilize other funding sources. So here, with the buses, if you recall, the buses is an item that we removed from the budget this year and last year. So we haven't purchased the 6 buses that we normally purchase every year. And so right now there is a grant that can potentially cover 80% of the cost of the buses. So we're of course going to apply for the grant, and if we get it, that could cover about $513,000. So again, we'll be looking at what are other funding sources, any grants available. There's been some safety and security grants that have come up recently. So we'll be able to look at all that and to minimize the impact to the capital improvement projects fund, so that we can continue funding the next year's priority 1 projects.
Okay, so what I was asking was, we had a list of 1, 2, and 3 that we went over several months ago, right? That y'all presented. So it would be much easier.
Sorry, the 1, 2, and 3 was just a maintenance presentation. That was not the capital renewal plan.
Okay, well then I want to expand the question then. So on for the projects and for the departments that are identified in this presentation, and I'm assuming these are the organizations or the groups of how y'all group the capital improvements, right?
Right.
So it would be much easier for us to look at that if we knew, here's our existing outstanding items, and then these are the items that we're earmarking for this first year on the capital replenishment fund or whatever. But the thing is what my original question was, is that we had several HVACs that were actually added to the bond a few months ago. And so I want to know that, so these HVACs that we're talking about here under facilities, are those in addition to that?
In addition to that.
Right,
And
so
by
those-
the way, I have a representative from every area here to answer any particular questions to the specific items that are listed here, in case
Right.
you want to elaborate on that.
Okay.
Which ones were you thinking? I mean,
That's the whole point. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I have the list memorized.
Berger's got a great memory.
And we can bring that list
Well,
back to you.
I don't
Mr.
want to
Barrett.
memorize it.
But I think
want
you're
it in
thinking
my
about
hand
the
so I can look at it.
the ESC rooftops, the Jameson rooftops, several of the chillers that were replaced in the district, and also some units at East. They were part of the bond program. Those have already all been done.
So like 7 or 8 of them, right?
Yes, sir.
that
They've
we
been
did
done.
back then.
These are new ones that were on the capital plan based on years and usage. The
Mm-hmm.
original capital plan. We've gone back. Some of the units we've been able to repair because they died. We did it with our own budget, or we repaired it with parts that we had. These are units that are part of the plan that are our priority one that need to be replaced. The ones you may be thinking of have already been completed.
Okay.
From the original bond.
Yes, sir.
And I'm assuming though what you have is an actual list of the 1s, 2s, and 3s, and you're close to being done with the 1s, and the remaining are 2s and 3s.
Yes, sir. And they've been deferred to the next year.
Deferred to the next year, and
Yes,
those
sir.
become priority 1s. I'm assuming.
Yes, sir.
Right, so
Depending
it's a-
either on if we do any repairs in-house,
Right.
the length of life that we think we can get out of them, or other things that may jump up.
And Ms. Carter, I'm assuming that all the other departments have such a list as well.
Everyone, as a matter of fact. If you recall the 10-year plan on year one, we had about $18, $19 million worth of needs. So by taking a deep look into it and then moving some of those priorities to another year, with deferring those projects to another year, we were able to, and then again, some that were not set to, their useful lives was set to expire like in 3 years from now. If they were costing us a lot to maintain or they broke, we moved them up.
Yeah.
So you had some that were moved up and some that were deferred.
No, I'm sure y'all made good decisions on that. I'm not questioning that at all. I guess I am more of, I like to see visuals of items on a list, items being checked off, items moving to
Right.
20 years down the road when we replace a roof, and that kind of thing, so that it's easier as we
Right.
go along when you guys come to us and say, oh, we need a roof for $1.3 million. Okay, well, this list
I
comes
have
off
that
the list.
because I've updated that list. I don't have it with me. Since I presented the entire list a couple of months ago, I didn't think about bringing you back the entire 10-year plan, so I just focused on the 1 year.
All right. And then, Mr. Posh, I guess you're here to answer questions regarding the bond, right? I'm seeing here that we have a $4.1 million surplus as it stands today.
Correct.
How much of that work is still outstanding, and where do we expect to be?
That 4.1 is confirmed, so we know we're going to have at least that much of an underrun. I expect that there's an additional 2 to 3 million that we will get back by the time we're done with all the projects. I just can't count on all that yet, so
Sure.
I'm not counting that yet.
Plus the 3 million
In
for
it.
interest.
Correct.
And percent of complete, what would you say that we are on our project? I know, I see the rig being worked on every day, so I know that's not done.
The rig is
But-
the last major project
Right.
that we have, and that'll be finished in August, so we're,
And the elementaries are done, except for
Elementaries are done,
Shady
yes.
Crest is done?
yes, sir, yes.
Oh, okay. So, and all the security updates, and I saw that we had a purchase of some locks, I guess.
We are doing the lockdown project that you'll just approve.
Right.
We'll go ahead and do that. There's, the security committee had recommended additional window film on interior classrooms. That's been approved. We're going out to bids for
Right.
that. And those are, and then whatever comes out of this, we'll do through the bond also.
So everything else, I see you added the HVAC replacements. Are these the HVAC replacements that we approved a while back, I guess, that we've already completed?
These are,
G?
yes.
Okay.
Those, the ones you see in G, those are already done.
I just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
And by the way, the lockdown buttons that you just approved, that is an example of something that we took advantage of grant funds. So we're applying for the grant, and hopefully we'll minimize the impact to the bond and use those resources elsewhere.
So with your contingency of $500,000, we're $8.2 million, right? Roughly.
Right, and then just to clarify, with bond projects, I believe you still will need to approve to utilize bond funds for those type of projects. So at some point, whether it's next month, I believe there has to be a public hearing for that. So there's still extra steps, and then again, with every individual project, if it's more than $75,000, and most of them are more than $75,000, we still have to procure it, we still have to bring it back to the board, you still have to approve the purchase, the vendor selected, et cetera.
So that sounds all good. So I guess, assuming our bond budget holds true with the surplus of 4.x million, 4.3 million or so, we're looking at, taking about 3.3 million out of our capital improvement budget, right?
Yes.
And then the following year, we have a anticipated 15 million.
And that's assuming this decision stays static about the next item on the agenda, that we can allocate that entire bond savings at this point in time to those projects alone.
That's assuming. I mean,
Right,
I'm
that's
going
assuming.
with that assumption for now,
Okay.
right?
So this is a summary on the screen. It's on your presentation of the potential other funding sources, right? Overall, it's $8.2 million that we need. And 3.5 is what we expect that we spend from capital projects if we're able to use bond funds and if we're able to get that grant. As far as the 10-year summary after moving, maybe this helps a little bit, even though this summary is not by department. But as far as the needs, you can see there year 2 now has 15.4 million. And that is because we pushed a lot of the projects that were set to expire in year 1, we defer them to year 2. So,
So I guess that leads me into my next question of what are we doing to recapture the funding? Because let's assume, and I'm making the assumption that we're using the $4.3 million from the additional bond funds, and we spend $3 million, 3.3 this year. So where are we going to come? We only have $10 million in that fund at this point.
right.
Right, so
one
there's
of the-
6.3 million.
So one of the things that we're doing, of course, is investing based on however we expect the cash flow to be. Of course, it's not going to generate a lot based on $10 million. But another thing is that towards the end of the year, because I'm going to bring this back to you probably during the budget process, June or so, you'll have an update of where we're expecting to end the year for this current fiscal year. And from there, if we see that there is potential savings, we may be able to, again, feed some more money to this capital improvement projects fund, so that we can continue to replace the items that need to be replaced, or especially the chillers, the roofs, all those things that we don't necessarily want to go out 10 years from now or however long from now for another bond to be able to replace it. So
I'm just trying to keep from kicking the can down
The
the road,
only
so to
way that
speak,
we
right?
can
If
fund
we
it
keep
is-
deferring,
right.
I mean, we keep
And-
deferring, it keeps getting larger and larger and larger. That's my whole
I mean,
angst
the
with
only
this.
way to fund it is by transferring from general fund. There's no other way to fund it. The other way to pay for some of these projects, not all of them, would be with a bond. And so right now
Yeah, we don't want to do that.
we're not gonna go into it. But
It's such a challenge for me when I think about some of the other things that we've been talking about, like in reoccurring costs of lower student-teacher ratios, potentially looking at modified block scheduling, and we got some estimated numbers on that, and versus and using that as a reoccurring cost and knowing that that's going to cost us about $4 million or more, versus putting this off and then asking the voting base for the funds to take care of facilities.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%.
I mean,
so
it's
I mean,
such
so
a struggle.
And
we
that's
keep
why-
piling on, but we never, we're continuing to expect the money to come from nowhere. So is there any way, I mean, do you happen to have, and I know that every year we get this scenario where, just like the Harvey Relief Fund, we got money from that. Is there any way or any inkling that you have that you can annotate to us, what funding we may potentially get or we're being considered for, not a dollar amount.
Hopefully
I'm
we
not
don't
asking
get
for
hit
that.
by another hurricane, but.
Well, I mean,
you know,
and we always seem to
that-
do well with that. We only have a $150,000 deductible on that. So,
She knows that.
yeah, we do.
No, the answer is I cannot predict, but what I can tell you is that just like I just told you about the buses, that grant, is that we will be taking advantage of any grant that comes out to be able to utilize for some of this costs.
When the House bill that just went through the last legislature,
HB3.
yes, they had put aside some money for districts for, did that ever get pushed through as far as safety and security?
The safety, yes, it did.
And so, is a portion of this money, is this above and beyond what we were getting on certain things?
We got it in fiscal year 19, and one of the things that we also got a grant recently, and that's what we're doing with the lockdown buttons. That's about $349,000. The safety and security that is coming through HB3, it's very minimal. It's not.
Okay, so
I'm gonna throw a ballpark figure, but I don't have the data with me. It's about $200,000 maybe.
So is
we're
that,
getting.
was that because our district got that amount, or did other districts get different amounts?
I believe it's in a per student basis.
I remember when we
But
had
I
that
gotta go back and
conversation,
check. Yeah,
we
it
were
was-
already so far ahead of most districts
Yeah,
in terms of safety and security. So we're not going to see any kind of reimbursement for these safety
Because
packages
we were already
that
doing
we've been
stuff
pushing.
before they announced that.
Right.
Right.
You don't expect to see any of that. Okay.
Yeah, no.
Georgiana, I have a question regarding what you were talking about the buses. And I know as long as I've been on the board, we've approved new buses every year. And
Every
then
year.
we deferred the last 2 years from purchasing buses. So my question is, the grant that you're speaking about, do you think we would seek or have approval before May's budget this summer to know whether we would get that back? And then I'll let you answer that. And I got two more.
The grant, I know that is in a first come, first served basis. So it's something that we have to, it just came out. It's something that
Okay.
we have to act on quickly. They have, man, I can't remember the exact amount that they have for all districts. But again, it's in a first come, first serve. So I'm not sure. I'm sorry? We submitted
Okay.
Friday? Okay.
So we should-
But I don't know when they're gonna give us a response, basically.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then my next two questions kind of go, are we behind since we deferred for 2 years on the number of replacement buses? And then looking at your chart on page 50, the 1,000,009, why such a large number in year 2 for transportation of your 10-year summary?
Year 9 on the 10 years.
No, not year 9.
2.
Year 2, you have
Oh,
you
because
have allocated
there was
1.9 million.
Right. There was a year that we purchased a ton of buses with bond funds. And so all of them are gonna come to their useful life at the same time.
And you believe that to be next year?
I think that amount is in the year, okay.
It's in year 2,
okay,
so
year-
this would be 2020 would
year
be year
two,
1,
It's all
2021.
those buses that are older than 20 years,
Mhm.
or 15 years. 15 years. So we are deferring some of them to year 2, but we have a lot of old buses. Keith is here from transportation, and he can answer some specific questions related to that.
Well, I mean that's I guess my question is, what is the breakdown of that 1,000,009 in year 2 of this 10-year plan? Is that number of replacement buses? I mean, it's a large jump from what we normally, every year we would fund roughly 600,000 or so for new buses, and we've deferred that. But it's such a large chunk, out of a cap improvement, $1.9 million for transportation. I guess, but did she answer it by saying there's a large number of buses that need to be replaced?
Yes, that is correct. That because of the chunk that was purchased at that one time, they're trickling down and getting to that point, and that's exactly where that larger purchase comes from. Yes.
And also on year 2 for transportation specifically, we have a bus wash unit that needs to be replaced. We have one that is included in this year's and one for next year. And then there is a need to move our underground storage tank to above ground. It's about 35, 36 years old. And so that is also in the list for next year to be looked again and see if it really needs to be a priority then. So that's, I can't remember the exact amount for the storage tank.
So are there any, if there are any other questions about detailed projects in the out years, you've given us that, and that's just
Right.
another document we need to go take a look at.
Yes.
Okay, so let's consider all those questions answered.
In the future, though, Mr. President, I would ask that, we get a comprehensive listing of all the items every time we're presented with budget numbers so that we can clearly see and eliminate a lot of these questions beforehand, hopefully. And so that we can clearly see what our, 10-year capital improvement plan is with level 1, 2, and 3 items.
Right, there was an opportunity to ask those questions prior to the meeting, and that we do have that data, but I do agree that a comprehensive every time, this group likes to see where we've been, where we're going, where we are right now. So that I think that would be a great idea for future reference. Okay, for the question that's before us now, is there any other? We've talked about the fact that there's no other way to refund this because we're just gonna have to transfer from, just to keep going, right? And things move out from year 1, they go to a higher priority in the next year. So are there any other questions about what's in front of us with what we're trying to do for the level ones, a $3.3 million hit to the $10 million that we've taken, that we've transferred? Are there any questions about that?
I guess the only other question I have is the add of the contingency. I mean, I understand the need for a contingency, and at the same time, if we had the opportunity to defer something to keep it within the scope of a certain amount without adding that contingency,
Right.
I think that would be preferential.
Yeah, there will likely not be an instance that I need to use a contingency without having had come to you, because if I need to have a major equipment replaced, it's likely to be above the threshold that is required for your approval. So at that time, I would advise you again where we're at with the overall improvement plan.
Okay. I had one esoteric question about athletics, and Coach Pardo, I was just curious. Well, never mind. I just said that I can answer that question by going and looking at my own data. So never mind. We'll talk about that later. I got the answer. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I have a question. So on page 46, where you look at the funding summary, so what we're talking about doing is looking at the total projects, but you're talking about taking the 4.3 remaining in bond funding to pay for these projects?
Potentially.
Okay, and then how does that, and then,
What he's saying?
okay, but then how does that affect the decision? I mean, is that factored in the decision on the next agenda item, which is the scoreboard?
The LED
Because
board, yeah.
that number represents, as you've shown it, as 4.1 million remaining in an overage, correct?
Money from the interest.
Well, there's two things that'll add to that. One is the interest. That's not factored into the it's 4.3, the 4.1 underrun right now, plus the 3 million interest, and plus I think there will be another 2 to 3 million in additional bond underruns. So we will have, we will have certainly enough money to pay for the next item if that's what y'all approve.
Right, and this assumes, again, that based on what you're saying, that funding comes in, because, and this also assumes that the grant funding comes in, because if not, then that
Right,
changes
so
that.
the overall potential impact is 7.7 million.
Okay, like you said, 7.7
Well, but
million.
including the contingency, you're at 8.2.
Right. Mhm.
So the actual number is 8.2.
8.2
8.2.
total potential impact to,
Okay.
to the capital projects fund.
Probably 90, yeah.
And just to mention one thing, because you did mention athletics, we
Yes,
do
ma'am.
have one agenda item for that structural spray project at
Right.
Barry Miller.
Right.
That is to be paid with these funds.
That's on this list, though.
Yeah, it's on the list.
Right, it's on this list. Mhm.
Okay.
And it just happened that the timing, because of the timing when they need the project to start, they needed to bring it to the board today in order to start the project before track season fully kicks in. And it's in this list because it's just happened to be the same time. Mhm.
And just one last question. So tonight you're asking us to approve this list and that funding, but each item will
It's kind
still
of like
come
to
back
give
to
me
us.
your blessing,
Blessing,
more than
okay.
an approval. But you've looked at the you've looked at the 10-year capital renewal plan before the entire 10-year. You've looked at the priority. I wanted to update you on what process had been taken to come to this place, and now we want you to bless these projects, and then we'll go ahead and procure whatever needs to be procured
So-
and bring it back to you.
If there is any like further unreadiness, let's table this for the rest until a little bit later this evening, so we can move on with some of the other items. But
I'm not sure why we would need to table. I mean, I have one more question, but
Okay,
why
so
would
we'll-
we're already on this item. I'm
Yeah,
not
but
sure why we would table
we're
it.
15, 20 minutes in. So I mean, if there's more that needs to be done, I don't want to rush you to a decision, but I do want to keep the meeting moving. Go ahead, Mr. Murphy.
Okay. My last question is, again, the threshold of items that come before us are typically over 75,000. So if we vote to approve this, which is a blessing, the items like Mr. Berger's equipment, that's 36,000 for mowers.
Mhm.
Are you going to go ahead and purchase those, or are you going to come back and ask us?
He's gonna say, I want to purchase them now.
Okay.
Because he has a great need to purchase them now.
So then technically, it is an approval, not a blessing. Because when we say
Well,
yes
you've
tonight,
already
you're
approved the 10 million.
correct.
The 10 million, right? So administration does have the authority to go ahead and make the purchases, but instead of doing that, we wanted to bring it to you and make sure you look at it. That, based on the conversation that happened last month while Mr. Berger was giving his department's status, this came up. And so we want you to know what we're doing with the funds, how we're planning on using them. One of the things, for instance, general fund, like we stated before, there was 2 years that we didn't fund buses. We didn't fund some of Mr. Berger's equipment and some other major equipment. And so this gives us that opportunity to be able to fund those buses without hitting the general fund and using the general fund for other purposes.
And assuming that we do move forward in using bond funds to offset some of these, defray some of these costs, what are you going to plan to do with the remaining 7 million?
It is my understanding that there has to be a public hearing to use any bond funds that have not been already approved for the specific projects. Am I correct? That is my understanding also. So that would still have to come before you, I guess at some point, depending on the urgency, right? Like if we're planning on replacing the roof over the summer, that's a major purchase. We gotta backtrack all the time that we gotta procure it and do all the steps that are required to get to start that project and finish it on time, right? So it might be something that we need to bring back to the board next month or in the next couple of months. Right. So there's a lot of other intricacies with using the bond funds.
Okay, and then so we're still going to go through our regular procurement processes with all of these things, right? And thresholds and all that stuff
Yes.
apply. So there's more approval to be done, right? There's
Yes.
more to be done.
Well, one more question. You mentioned though that we were rolling in some of the interest that we had on our bond fund account.
I can't roll the interest from the bond funds to the capital improvement plan.
Okay, that was my question.
Can't do that.
that has to stay bond funded.
Thanks for all your work.
I can
on this.
generate interest on the balance that I have from those 10 million, but
No, that's what I mean. That was what I was. That was already in the capital improvement plan. Yeah, so that's not bond funds. Yeah, gotcha.
Mr. President, I make a motion that
Yes,
the
sir.
Board of Trustees approve the list of projects identified as level 1 priority in the capital renewal plan.
So motion, Floyd. Is that a second from Barry?
Yeah.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 6-0 with Secretary Decker absent. All right. Thank you all very much. We'll just plow ahead into item 2. Consider to approve the Pearland ISD Stadium banner design and an additive option for an electronic display screen.
Yes, at the September 2019 meeting, the board approved the guaranteed maximum price for the rig press box expansion and facade treatment. The GMP did include the cost of large banners as part of this facade treatment. PBK Architects are here basically this evening with some of those banner graphics, which will be presented for your approval. Additionally, and I understand this kind of came from the naming committee, it's my understanding, a recommendation by administration. We also looked, the board has requested that the project team consider adding an electronic display screen to that facade. The LED screen would provide interchangeable graphics and highlight the home team, because as you know, we share the rig with our 2 high schools, and so we were looking at that on identifying each game. So, and I understand there's capabilities then too, if we had other events. I can't list, but I remember one BOA there, actually Bands of America, that had a competition, for example, and some of those other, 4th of July, thank you. And it'll show upcoming events. So the bottom line is the cost estimates, as we can see there, as screen range from $425,000 to $600,000. And we are asking that the board approve the PISD stadium banner design and consider approval of one of the 3 electronic displays.
All right. Mr. Posh, or
Yeah, and just one thing, just to clarify the funding. So the funding for the banners is already in the project.
Yes.
We're just asking for approval of the design.
Okay.
And then the screen is extra. There's 3 options for the screen. So
Is that, on the, I'll start off with the screen and then the logos on the basic, without talking about the digital screen. On both sides, the banners, it's a windscreen material, correct?
yes.
And it's UV, for the most part, UV protected, and what's the life on that typically?
Yes.
3 to 5 years?
I'm going to let the architect
Sure.
answer. I believe that the
Or what are you telling me?
did you have a
Get this on
presentation?
record?
we have a whole presentation.
You want to roll
so
through? Okay, let's
I think
do
Jeff
Go
can
ahead.
take us through,
Show
and
it
then
to
we'll
us,
be able to answer
Let's do
questions
that.
on it.
My 2 favorite guys in the room right here.
Thank you all so much for having us back. John did a great job of saying what we're going to present, so I'm just going to jump right into it. So for a long time, we showed this rendering, and then there was you saw some graphics on there of some shape and size that had some football players on it and stuff, and so we realized that they weren't grand enough for what you guys wanted, and so we've been working with your fine arts and your athletics department to bring you something a little bit more bold and encompassing the entire stadium rather than just individual pieces. And so what you have here is a Pearland side on your left that incorporates all 6 of the major activities that happen at the rig and the nest, and then you have the Dawson side on the right. You'll notice that in the original rendering we had different logos. The Pearland P and the Dawson D have been selected by your high school principals and athletic staff as the logos that they would like to permanently be emblazoned on the side of the stadium. And then we will rename the stadium Pearland ISD Stadium, not just have Pearland ISD on there, so it'll no longer be officially named the rig. So here's a zoom in of the Pearland side. And then here's a zoom in of the Dawson side. We're still tweaking a couple of these photos, but you can get the general idea. For example, that band guy is not an actual Dawson band person, but in the final, whatever's put up 60 feet tall, he will be in the official Dawson uniform.
If I were, so Jeff, I thought I may not be remembering correctly. Have a Roger Clemens moment here, but I didn't realize that the banners were going to go all the way up. I thought they were going to stop short.
So whenever we brought you the bid last time, we brought you a base price with banners that stopped short, and then we brought you an alternate for going all the way up, and the alternate was selected. So now everything we're
Just so it
showing
shows it
is
closes
in
the
compliance
record
with
set.
that alternate that was selected.
Jeff, just to answer the question, the banners are like 18 feet wide and about 38 feet tall.
Um,
And they're about 10 to 12 feet up off.
What, I mean, but the graphics on both sides, of course, whoever's gonna, at the high schools, they're gonna get input from everybody to make sure.
They've been giving input already.
And on the logos, on the building, the columns, and the Pearland ISD Stadium, are those backlit? Or are they lit somehow at night, or is it?
We're either gonna do backlit or we're gonna put a light on them.
Okay.
We're still,
On,
the maintenance staff would like us to just put a light on them. It's easier to change out. It's a little bit more cost effective, but they will be lit. And if you let me continue on through,
Oh,
I'll
I'm
show you.
sorry. I apologize.
I'll show you how this whole thing kind of
My bad.
works together. Are there any more comments on specifically the graphics?
No, sir.
I have lots, but we can wait.
What's that?
I
No, go
have
ahead.
lots, but we
If
can.
you have
no,
questions
I'll-
on the graphics?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, go ahead.
So tell me about who is on the team to actually approve the graphics presented here.
Tom Bell, Ben Pardo, Eric Wells, let's see, Dr. Kelly was involved, several of the other staff members in your administration. We had about, 10 people in the room?
Okay, so campus level people that live with this kind of stuff all day, every day. Many
Yeah,
of
they were
those-
involved whenever we were soliciting photos to put in there. They were shown by the administration level to get input.
Okay, because I'm really nervous about making big decisions about this kind of stuff when this is really the brand of their schools. And having a bit of a committee, and maybe Mr. Pardo can talk a little bit about the feedback, or Mr. Wells can talk about, Coach can talk about anything that they got from the campus levels about these graphics.
When they came to us, this one, the Dawson, the Pearland one, I felt when we first looked at it, it really jumped out at us because it really captured the essence of Pearland with the flag as a focal point.
Yeah.
And so the challenge to PBK then was to do the same thing on the Dawson side. And so like Jeff just said, we're in the process still of tweaking this one to get it to where there's a balance. When I look at it, I love the look. It's just not,
The wow. Is
I'm not in love with it yet,
Yeah.
but we're working on that piece of it.
And you're involving the coaches that are the leaders of these kind of organizations at those schools to have
Correct. I mean,
input
Coach-
into that?
Coach Allison, Coach Tillis, Mr. Palumbo, Kelly Holt, at the end, we'll look at and make sure that everything, have looked at some. Like I said, at this point, we're a lot closer on the Pearland side.
Yeah.
Really love the Pearland side, just wasn't real.
I feel like this is muted on the Dawson side. I feel like I want to see more red, like the claw really in there.
Well,
I
that's
wanna
funny you say that, because we actually had to, in one of the initial renderings, we had to subdue the color
Mhm.
because we really wanted to capture the activity, the
Right.
students. And I think that's part of the Pearland side, to be honest with you. They did a great job, PBK did a great job of creating the subtlety in the maroon and the black and the gray to really blend in.
Mhm.
When you throw the red and the blue out there, what happened was you were seeing more of the color
Yeah.
than the actual action.
Yeah.
And so one of the challenges for them was to basically subdue the color a little bit to really make the activities jump out at you. The band, the golf, the football,
And maybe if
soccer.
it was like a football, they have the red uniforms just the same, like a shot of, and I'd like to see the logo on the helmet. I know that seems silly, but it identifies the football player as a Dawson unique player.
In terms of the D claw, you mean?
With the- logo
And
on the
I
helmet
think
kind
I think initially what happened when we saw the Pearland side, the flag in the middle really create a focal point of it, and then
Yeah.
everything around it. So that's the challenge. And so what we're looking at this one, we still don't have that focal piece. I don't think that we have the focal piece on this side of the banners that we do on the Pearland side. So that's the challenge. I agree in terms of doing something that's going to create more of a focal point. The color was an issue, and we're working through the color because, like I said, we were, when you first looked at it, it looked like they just threw blue and red on it.
Yeah.
And it really, the paint jumped out at you, the color jumped out at you. the action shots did not. And
Yeah.
so I think there's a balance of creating that color, and there's a subtlety in terms of blending that to manage the way they did the Pearland
The
side. And
Pearland
so-
side to me looks awesome.
and so
I mean,
it's
it just
that's the
resonates.
challenge, I think, in terms of the colors, the red and the blue. How do you make it Dawson's side, create the focal point, and make it jump out at you to create that balance? So that's the job.
And so I guess that's the hesitation for me of approving graphics tonight, because what I'm approving is not kind of final artwork. I'm just kind of saying this is okay.
Yeah, I don't
to
think
go
we're
down
here to,
this
I
route.
think it's conceptual. Tonight, it's more still in the concept of, this is the concept. Pearland side, Dawson has their side. Like I said, they're still trying to, like Jeff said, they're still trying to tweak that piece. Still not quite where it needs to be, so it's more about the concept more than the actual, you're not approving that graphic. That graphic is, that eagle in the middle on that flag is not the graphic that I promise you is gonna be on the Dawson banner side.
Okay. So taking that a little bit further, Coach, can you tell me where Turner plays lacrosse right now?
Where what?
Where Turner High School plays lacrosse?
Well, Turner High School, there's a lacrosse league that plays at Turner, but there is no Turner lacrosse.
It's a club, it's a club sport.
No, well,
They play it at Turner. There's a field there.
yeah,
right?
well, we have.
But it's not a district funded, it's not a
No,
UIL
ma'am.
district
No, ma'am.
funded sport.
Years ago, there was a club that was ran through Turner. There is still club, when I say club, not a district club, but there are club leagues. There's still a club in Pearland that uses Pearland facilities at Turner South, the field over there, as their practice and game fields. But
Okay,
per
so
se, like you
Turner
said,
itself does not have a
No, ma'am.
UIL supported
No, ma'am.
sport at this point.
Absolutely.
Do we see a trajectory in the future at which Turner would have a sports team funded by the district?
the way I understand it, no, that all UIL activity is either gonna happen at Pearland or at Dawson.
Because they play where they're zoned at, right?
Correct, they play.
Wherever they're zoned, they play for Pearland or for
That is
Dawson.
correct. Turner has access to both schools, depending on their zone.
And these banners, Crystal, these they're just, I mean, they're easy replaceable.
Yeah, well, but the logos on the stadium aren't
And I understand,
necessarily.
I'm just talking about the banners because we.
Yeah.
When you say logo, you mean like the claw, the
Yeah.
D-claw? Okay.
So,
And, Turner, they're called the Pearland Railcats. They're not the Turner Railcats. Pearland as a city,
Gotcha, okay,
So-
across the club.
gotcha.
I have a question. On these banners, they kind of do look a little muted. I'm assuming that over time they're going to fade a little bit, right? And what's that expected life cycle roughly? 5 years?
I would say
20 years? 40? 6? Okay. And what's the cost of those, you reckon?
It's not that bad.
The total price was $150, but that included all the rigging, Jeff.
Right.
So if you kind of look at each panel, they've got rigging on both sides of each column that it's going to be. there'll
So it's
be a
just
lot of
pretty
cost
nominal,
savings.
I
We're
guess.
gonna
It's
have
not
to
that
do
much,
again when the banners have to be replaced.
Did you
Just
want to see that on the 10-year plan?
Yeah. It should be there automatically. Well, we have to approve it first.
Jeff, did you want to get back to your?
Your presentation.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, did you, Crystal, you had your questions on that? We can go back to your presentation.
Thank
So,
you, Coach.
Where we are tonight is, we're not necessarily needing an approval on these graphics. We just didn't want, since we've been showing you these renderings all along, and then now we've taken kind of a major deviation based on your staff's input, we didn't want y'all to go out there for the first game of the year and be like, what's all this great stuff? And so we just wanted to make sure that and we absolutely, if you'd like us, we can come back in February and bring you the kind of the final version, but it's not necessarily an approval thing. It's just,
You could just send it to us via email, that's cool too.
there you go.
I mean, I guess the confusion is on the agenda item. It says approve the ISD banner and consider approval for one of the electronic display screens. So they're asking for an approval is why.
Okay, well, I'll leave that up to Mr. Posh and Mr. Coates. So the next section of the group is the new sign. And so each of these you'll see, we did go ahead and tweak, and you can see here, we didn't get the latest version of the banners onto this rendering because we were shooting on them pretty fast. And so you can see that one had a lot more red, and the athletes are a little bit more muted, which we didn't want. We want the athletes and and the logos to be more muted. But I digress from that. So this is what we're calling the small version. It's about a 600 square foot LED sign, and it will fit right below where the rig sign is now. Then the middle option is about a 1,000 square foot sign. It'll fit in between the big columns where the logos are. And then the third option runs all the way across. It's about a 1,200 foot sign, 95 foot wide, 13 feet tall. Runs all the way across.
I can't imagine the upkeep. What's the cost of maintenance for something like that?
Bree? It's a PBK warranty.
There's an annual service contract that I think is like $9,500 a year. And other than that, it's just normal replacing the bulbs and things like you would with a regular scoreboard.
Who was the winning bidder on that?
Sir?
Who was the winning bidder on that?
So this is a budget estimate. We haven't bid it.
Because you don't know what to get it on, right?
Excuse me?
You just don't know what to get it on yet.
You said you don't know what to get a bid on yet, but you've got a estimate on all three options.
From a vendor.
Right,
Yeah.
from a vendor, okay.
And that's a total project cost, which includes the structure to hold it and the installation and everything, so.
So when we're looking at those numbers, there's no way that's gonna just like, if we send it out to bid, that you're gonna come back with like a 50% price reduction on any one of those
No.
items. We're gonna be looking at somewhere around $500,000 to put that up.
Correct. But like John said, that includes all of it. The price for just the screen is, for the screen and an installation is not that much. So when you go to replace it, because all the mounting brackets will be installed, all of the architect fees and the general contractor fees will be paid for, you're not looking at, if you have to replace the entire sign again, you're not looking at this cost, because all of the infrastructure will be installed. Also, you have a scoreboard right now. It has a similar lifespan, 8 to 10 years, but you keep it going by replacing parts, replacing panels. It's doubtful in that same time frame you would have to replace the entire screen. You will be replacing parts and pieces, and it does come with a warranty so there's a built-in service contract for the first couple years that the company that installs it will be maintaining it for you, and then you'll add the service contract after that.
So, on this digital display on the first one, is it, able to show live action video feeds?
I'm glad you asked.
Is that on the next slide? I'm sorry.
Look at that.
Oh.
Something there.
Oh, I didn't see.
It's not in there.
It's an animation. It's not in here.
That's the mid-level one.
This is the mid-level one, correct?
Pretty cool. That's why I like the big one.
We should have the band play.
All the designs, I'm assuming are done internally with our people that create the logos and the designs and the scrolls and.
So the same people that run your video screen,
Right.
they would tie into this and they could do whatever they wanted on the outside.
I mean, those backlit logos on the columns look really good. But I understand
So
maintenance.
these are
Mr.
actually
Burke.
showing.
I understand.
These are actually showing front lit.
Front lit, okay.
But they could be backlit as well. We have power run to them, and we're just trying to figure out the best way to light them.
All right.
Is there added any LED lights anywhere along the light of the stadium, like you see other stadiums that are going around?
So you have lights on the top and bottom right now, lighting up those banners.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
Okay, and that fencing that's around the top of the rig, that's not going away in favor of because I saw a glass deal, and I understand that, that's just schematic, that was a picture, okay.
Correct.
We'll still have the fence, okay.
And-
Okay.
That glass was fenced. It's just
And this,
Yeah.
if we approve something tonight, is this project, when's it gonna be, the whole project be
I
finished?
think August, right? August, he said.
August 15th.
It's all in with everything else, okay. All right, so we don't I don't think we need to do an actual motion and approval for the banners. I think you have our agreement, yes, to go ahead. It's approved as a part of the project, and so we know we're not actually going to be doing the approval of the graphics tonight, which is what the action item said. So since we're not doing that, do you just need our collective okay to go ahead with what you're looking at, or you just have our guidance? Is that good enough?
I think the question on the banner is, what level of approval would you like? Would you like to, we had envisioned showing this to you as the final approval with just the minor tweak of the band person in there. But, you know, given the questions, I guess a question for you, do you want us, we would really want to move forward with them no later than the next board meeting.
Okay.
So we could either bring the banners back to you for your final approval in February, or we could just show them to you in between. And I guess the question just is, what level of approval would you like?
I think we have a marketing, I mean, we may be meeting before
Yep.
the next board meeting for that
Yeah, for a,
workshop.
workshop,
that
okay.
Marketing or so maybe we can look at it then.
Okay, so first, do we want approval at that level? Yes, Lance, yes, sir.
Back to Jeff. On slide 61 and slide 63, two different facades on the columns. Which one?
Oh, the color?
Well, they're two different styles too. Is it more along the
I
brown
don't know
tan
what-
side or the
There's
gray side?
You're talking about the two columns. One of them is grayscale. One of them's red brick.
It'll look just like this, great.
Okay.
I'm not as concerned about us approving the graphics if the right stakeholders are in the room to approve those themselves. I don't need to get in the weeds, just as long as we can have the approval that PHS band is happy with their picture and cheerleaders are happy with their picture and everybody's got the buy-in and we're good to go, then I just assume let those stakeholders that have everyday use of that be the one to approve it.
So maybe your motion on the banners could be approved pending approval of appropriate stakeholders?
Yep, I'm cool with that. If that's okay with everybody else.
That's good with me.
I mean, I'd like to see them.
Are we ready?
And then we'll show them to you
Yeah,
in
yeah.
between electronically.
Yeah.
Are we ready for motion on the banners?
Yeah, I'm fine with the banners.
Approval to
As long as they look good.
concession.
Well, pretty much, right? We're gonna make it'll be a motion to
You're gonna do
approve.
two? You wanna do two motions?
Well, we're gonna do two motions. We're gonna do one for the banners and then one for the
Okay.
the LED screen. So the first one would be a motion approving the banners pending the input of stakeholder groups. Right.
I'll second that.
Okay. So there's a motion from the chair, second from Mrs. Carbone. Any other discussion?
Jeff
Okay.
told me before he left that he was fine with anything we decided.
Okay, good.
For the
All
first
right.
time ever.
All right. Well, then let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0 with trustees Barry and Decker absent. All right. Next, we'll go to the LED screens, and if there's a motion to be made, you know, of course, we'll entertain it. But
Does anyone have a specific preference for one or the other? I mean, is anyone considering the small one?
Is the cost
No.
for maintenance the same with all of them? Basically, you have like a $9,600 contract once a year.
Yeah.
Man, 10 grand.
Whenever you have a bigger sign, Larry and Matt will tell you, there's just more opportunity for panels to go out and more opportunities to bring someone back. So the larger the sign, the more likely you will have a maintenance call. And so the more likely you'll have to order more parts and pieces to fix it and order a crane to get up there and do it. So the larger the sign, I do think the higher the risk in terms of cost down the road in terms of, but at the same rate, the larger the sign, the more bang for your buck. As you can kind of see, there's kind of a barrier to entry because we've got to do a lot of work just to get the sign up there. And so as they grow, the cost per square foot kind of doesn't grow as much. And so there's,
Can I ask you a question that's kind of off topic from my future knowledge? Whenever you guys come as an architecture group for these kinds of projects, and we've done sort of piecemealed the rig sort of projects together. We did the press box piece, we did the facade piece, and now we're talking LED. Is there a separate sort of architecture fee built into every one of those projects versus like we did the whole shebang at one time?
Not the way we do it. Everything's just a set fee percentage of the construction cost.
These LED signs have come down in price considerably over the past several years, just like TVs, you know.
Yeah, I'm not as concerned about.
No, I'm just saying, I'm just for your
conceptually
knowledge, I've watched this for over the past 7 to 8 years, they come down considerably. You know, so, you know, when you do like we do commercials and stuff like that on our scoreboard, that's the same kind of feed we're gonna get on this one?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I was all in for going for the largest press box that we could put in because I thought that would be functional for what, you know, that space is supposed to provide, right? And I didn't want to build anything that by the time we got it finished would already be, you know, obsolete, you know, based upon what was going on around us. But at an entry price of $425, I don't have a stomach for the LED screens. If we're gonna spend $425,000, I really think that there's other higher priority things that we could go after. I love the concept, I love the animation, but I don't think I have the stomach for either one of the options. So, you know, with that said, let's just talk turkey. So is everyone gonna move ahead on a option for, you know, for the deal? And if this is something that we take no action on and we decide that we're not gonna do or not gonna pursue, then, you know, that's just where we are. But we took a look at this based upon the recommendation of the facilities naming committee. But of course, they had no prices to look at, neither did we, right? And so, understanding and respecting what they were looking for in the LED boards.
But I guess what I heard them say was not something this grand. What I heard them say is if you go back to, for example, slide number 54, and the rig in the small area at the top, that would be exchangeable. That way it would be animated there to be able to change it from the rig to the nest on any given night. That was my understanding of what that was going to look like.
That is awesome.
I don't know.
That's what I took from
That's right. That's what we talked about.
So when I see these graphics at this price point, that's way more than I expected, and way more features than I expected for that sign to have.
I think it looks great, but the thing is a scoreboard is about 600,000, right?
Depends on how big.
Roughly, I mean, just averages or whatever, given our current situation. But what I'm getting at is, we have that, we talked about the rig versus the nest at the, you know, right above the midpoint there. And, you know, we might, if we're gonna go and do a branding project on the 4th, you know, you're talking about spending a lot of money when it comes to branding, right? And I'm sure the scoreboard's gonna come up. That's a $500,000 to $750,000 for a scoreboard. You know, I see the scoreboard every day. It does say Oilers.
So these were the options that we were asked to bring by, and so the first option that we actually showed was tiny. It was basically, you took the rig sign, the literal rig sign, we take that off, that plastic polycarbonate, we take out the tube light fixtures behind it, and we plopped in a tiny sign in there compared to these. And it literally, all you could do is change it from saying the rig, and then you could change it to say the nest. And you could, because of the way these TVs work, I mean, it's basically a TV. You could do any of this, it would just be at that smaller scale. Because once you buy the TV,
Put an LED in that spot, what you're saying.
you're getting LED, you're getting all the functionality in LED. Because we're not gonna put fluorescent lights up there anymore, or incandescents. You just, you know, Matt Klein would hunt me down in my sleep. And so we could easily get some kind of price point from you that says we are willing to spend approximately X to X and show you what size of a sign you could get for that. Because even if you don't want to pay any of these three prices, and maybe you do, I don't know, I'm just responding to Charles's question. You still have the issue of the naming.
Yeah.
That issue is not going to go away just because these signs are too big for what you want to pay. So there probably is some discussion of, well, if we don't want to do one of these three options, what would we want to do?
I did see that. I went back and looked at this, and exactly, Crystal, you're exactly right. The rig, the nest, that's all they were talking about. Okay, but you know, what's really the point of that, right? So that gets me back to where I was with the press box, right? If we're not going to spend some money, if we're not going to do something, you know, on a grand scale, then let's just keep our money, right? And let's not spend it at all. So I do like the fact that you have a larger option than what was shown, right? I think that you could have, I don't know what that would have been, pretty much, it wouldn't have given us a whole lot, you know? But again, I don't know that type of naming of the stadium or that type of branding, looking at what we have here, I don't think it's something that we need to pursue. That's just my opinion. I say that I don't think it's anything that we need to pursue.
Coach Pardo, can I have your opinion again?
Hey man, Coach, you got me in my press box, so come on up, man. Talk to me. Maybe we can.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I feel like this is not a decision. I mean, this is a decision that's really about the teams and about the sports and about our athletic program that's far outside the scope of what we do as board members. And you have a better day-to-day pulse on that than any one of us do.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, what we're looking at is about the rebranding of the stadium. And so anything we can do to create that, I think it warrants consideration. At the end of the day, you know, you're looking at the pricing, and it's extravagant. I agree. You know, you look at it and it looks beautiful, but at the end of the day, you got to see, you know, the cost relative to what you're getting for it. So,
I mean, I don't see a return on investment of this kind of sign.
well, I mean, you know, when you put that board up there, you know, what are the things that it's going to do for you? I think I think there's a lot of different pieces to that. One, obviously, what we have at the stadium today is the video board for the game. This extends that piece out now on the backside of the press box. I think you're going to be able to disseminate information, communicate things. You can even advertise, and all that is happening right now because our kids are handling that. You know, we turn it on, but the kids, the videotech kids, they're the ones who are managing all that, and they're the ones that we continue to manage, not just the one on the field, but also this. So is there an educational component to that? I would say there is. I think that, you know, we got kids who are leaving here who are going to potentially NRG or to the Toyota Center, and this is what they have there. And so now they're leaving here with some experience of how to put this together, how to choreograph a commercial, advertisements, how to put it all together. So there is an educational component to this as well. And so, you know, when you look at that piece of that, then you look at the advertisement that you can potentially get out of something like this. You know, right now we have people who advertise at the rig. All that advertisement is when you're sitting there at the game. This is to me 24/7, 365 days a year, potentially down 35, that you can run all sorts of advertisements that can roll through there potentially. So could there be a revenue stream here? I think there could be. You know, I think it's very indicative of kind of what they did on the baseball field at Pearland, where we have the billboards. And I know that was initially, to me, that's a great concept, because initially billboards, you sell an ad, and the people who see those ads are people who come to the game only. But the beauty of Pearland and Euler Drive or Pearland Parkway is that now those ads are doubled up. So, you know, people, local businesses are looking at that as an opportunity to support the community, have year-round advertising, because if you're driving up and down Pearland Parkway, you're seeing all 12 or 14 of those signs every year. Now, in the past, only people, like I said, who come to the games would get the value of that. But now, the value of having that sign is twofold. You know, it's for supporting the Pearland baseball or softball, but now you're also getting that advertisement for your dollar year-round, 365 days a year. People are driving up Pearland Parkway, and they're getting value for that. So I think I see a little bit of that also in this. Now, In terms of how much that can generate, I don't know. I'm not a marketing guy. I don't know what that can do, but I can see how that could potentially, like I said, 365 days a year, all day long, people driving by, and what's going to happen now is people are going to drive by and they're going to look, because just right there, even without the video board, you're going to look and you're going to want to see, wow, what is that? It's the stadium, because it's going to draw attention. Then you get a video board up there that can actually advertise for the community, and then also, communicate information,
So is that, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you got me down a stream of thought in my head. Isn't that what we did with the
Buses?
scoreboard that's currently in the rig, that we had that privately funded outside of dollars that were taxpayer dollars?
That board was
Southeast
completely,
Memorial Herman.
Memorial Herman funded that board completely for us. Yes, that is correct.
Well, the other
me
one was
ask you this.
damaged, right? And they stepped up, or was that something else?
Sir?
Did the previous one get damaged or something like that, and they stepped up and did that, or was that part of their contract,
No,
the original contract?
for the board.
For the board,
For
yeah.
the current board that we have. No, really, it was just Memorial Herman, really wanted to.
Be a community partner.
Get involved in Pearland. They asked what potentially, we would need or want, what kind of vision we had for athletics, and we presented them with a proposal, and they jumped on it.
Hey, Jeff, I was going to ask you, I wouldn't believe this particular signage would be built into the construction and could be added at any time, because whoever comes out to do the scoreboard or the sign, it's not built in, meaning if this was tabled and we decided to do it.
Like
It's
if you
pretty
built
well
the
built
press
in.
box, could you do it
In
later?
the wind zone that you're at, you're not going to want to mount something that high without some serious substructure. And so you're talking about ripping off all those metal panels and putting in ripping those walls open and installing some stuff behind those walls to support this no matter what. And so that's kind of why we're bringing it to you now, because we're in a great spot to get all of that hung while we're building the back of that press box up, to make sure that when the next hurricane comes through, this is not getting ripped off and fly down land in the baseball field.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I guess your answer is it's better off doing it now, but to answer my question, you could bring a sign like this back onto the rig at a later date.
If you did it at a later date, you're probably looking at a more expensive option than any of the three numbers that you know
Right.
what I mean? So if it's $600,000 now, it's gonna be more than that later.
Right.
Because you're gonna have to do a lot of surgery to get to where we will be for basically free, because we're
Build it
building.
from ground up.
But that said, you will be able to do it later. Also, you're gonna have to go around the canopy that we're adding, so the crane work's gonna be trickier. There's a lot of advantages to doing it now, but at the same rate, you could do it later.
I was just gonna say though, Sean, and I was opposed to the expanded press box. I mean, there's no secret to that. But if we're gonna have an expanded press box, this is one good use of it that the entire community could actually
Yeah.
reap.
You're already in at $9 million on the press box.
Well, we're, what's another $500,000 for that when you've already spent $6.5 million over what the budget was? It's not even 10%, so, I mean,
I like the idea of the middle
525?
size.
and we potentially have,
525?
have additional bond funds that we can use instead of going into more debt or pulling out of,
I like 520.
Get the votes.
Yeah.
I just,
Whatever.
I just think that, we're in a, we've talked about it all along about our culture of our district. We want to get better at what we're doing. We want to have people, I've always had this vision, strive for this vision of where I want people to love where they live, be proud of it, right? In their community and the facilities. Down south of us is a community that hasn't done that. Okay, it's a big town down south, and they're going through a $365 million bond, and they're constantly, they're trying to do this right now to draw away people from to draw people that live in our community to move down to Lake Jackson. I'm in the middle of it. I mean, they're building $24 million facilities so people will move down there, so they'll bring their kids down there. Instead of living in Pearland, live in Lake Jackson, because we are putting investment in our kids. And so, doing something like this adding to the value of the community into, you know, it's something people can see, right? And Crystal made a statement about return on investment. I mean, wow, that's kind of how do you judge a return on investment on stuff? I mean,
I'm not just talking about I mean, I think Coach Pardo brought up some great
educational
I guess
points.
what I'm saying is there a way that it pays for itself?
Right. I think
That
Is there, a
we
way
can go out
is
and-
there a way that anything pays for itself?
Well,
Does the bus wash
I
pay
would
for
prefer
itself?
that private entities foot the bill for something like this so that we could use those dollars
I understand.
for things in the classroom so that the culture piece is I hear what you're saying, and I don't feel like we have as much opportunity to go out and seek private funding for the things that we need to change in the classroom. We have an opportunity to seek out private dollars to pay for something like this, that there is a return on the investment of money because we can leverage this opportunity for our benefit, I guess
And
is what I'm trying to say.
I 100% agree. Any kind of income stream you can get to the, and there's only about 3, right, that are outside of what we get paid from the government, right? 3 revenue streams. It ain't much. And one of them is athletics, sponsorships, and things of that nature. I mean, you have nutrition, but when people are paying consistent money that are not part of what we get, there's not very many of them. And so athletics is one of them. And so I just, you know, I kind of get frustrated because every time athletics is brought up, we pick it apart. And it's just like fine arts. It's no different than any other program in our community, in our school system. But we break this thing apart like it's like, oh my gosh, here we go again. We're going to spend more money on the football field because that's what I hear constantly. And it frustrates the snot out of me because I have to hear this all the time. I mean, if it was putting up something for a program, the culinary. I mean, I love culinary, and my daughter loves culinary too. But we're going to spend whatever it takes to make it the best thing at Turner, without blinking an eye. Technology, hey, let's just spend whatever we want. I mean, that's kind of the mentality. I'm not just saying the board. I'm talking about the, it's just frustrating that we break things apart in athletics and extracurricular activities. Not just athletics. I'm not talking about you, Crystal. I'm just saying in general. We always have long discussions about extracurricular activities and money spent, period.
Trustee, I'm
frustrating.
gonna go ahead and ask you for a motion, sir.
I'll make a motion that we approve the mid-level digital scoreboard or whatever you want to, digital display at the cost of $525,000.
All right, there's a motion, Bodkin. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second, Barry. Is there any further discussion? Any unreadiness at all to go for the $600,000 option or the $425,000 option? For the 525. I understand. So I'm asking, is there any other discussion that somebody want to do something different? All right, hearing none, let's vote. The motion is for the $525,000 LED scoreboard. All in favor? Let's vote. That is 5. And opposed, Gooden, 1. Motion carries with Trustee Decker absent. All right. Thank you all very much. We appreciate
Thank
it.
y'all very much. We really
All right.
appreciate your time.
Okay. All right.
Sorry, counselors.
Are the counselors sleepy? Y'all need a break? We good? We need to stretch? Did not mean for that to go that long. All right, so.
I got any Red Bull for him back there?
Did anybody tell y'all tomorrow's a day off for y'all?
I'm gonna get some. I gotta get some caffeine.
Ms. Moore, we're gonna go grab some waters real quick. We'll be right.
Good evening.
We will reconvene. Everybody got snacks and drinks? We're good to go. All right. Sorry about that delay. Mrs. Moore, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. And thank you to all your staff for staying. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Gooden, and thank you, board, for having me share with you tonight about the Guidance and Counseling Department. And I would like to say that I have 8 wonderful counselors here. Would you like to know where they're from?
Yes.
Okay, y'all get up.
Oh, you meant her.
So we
Ms.
have
Moore?
Dr. Schlitzberger from Dawson High School. We have Ms. Claudia Sotelo from Pace. We have Dr. Coriat Hahn from West and South. We have Mr. Jermaine Dixon from Rogers Middle School. We have Rosie Flores from Magnolia Elementary. We have Sissy Coe from Challenger Elementary. We have Jessica Frazier from Dawson High School. And we have Mr. Mia Baker from Pearland High School. So I want to thank them for being behind me tonight. And thank you, Ms. Weimer. I was thanking the board, and you weren't here yet. So I always appreciate your time and allowing me to share all of the awesome things that the counselors are doing. But know that for this particular update, I'm not listing all of the activities because you all know just the wonderful plethora of activities that they are involved in on a daily basis on the campus. So I didn't feel the need to just rehash all of those things. I may throughout my presentation bring up a few, but otherwise this presentation is a little bit different than the last couple. So I just want to let you know that, and I know you've seen the PowerPoint. And I wanted to share a picture with you of my department. There are 52 wonderful counselors, and this picture is from October 14th. Y'all notice a lot of us are wearing Astros jerseys and t-shirts that day to support the team. So this is from our training. You guys know that we have been receiving trauma-informed training through the Trauma and Loss Center. So this was the last training that we received this school year, focusing on resilient schools. And just a few more highlights. We've got Mr. Jermaine Dixon back here, and that's his son in the middle. And there's a picture of Mr. Dixon at Rogers Middle School, and there's a rock garden. Isn't that pretty cool, what they're doing there, and have the students create? And then the counselors are always supporting one another. So here's a picture of Mr. Dixon going to support Lawhon Elementary, where his son goes to school, and that's Ms. Perez, the counselor at Lawhon, and she's having a career day. Am I right, Mr. Dixon? Yes, so he went as a supporter and a speaker for Lawhon. So those are some of the small activities that we do, but really big impact for our kids. So counselors in the news, just a couple of more things. Dr. Coriat Hahn behind me here, she was on Fox 26 back in September, and I don't know if y'all had a chance to watch that video, but I shared the link with you in this PowerPoint. But she did a phenomenal job of representing Pearland ISD and talking about all of the different mental health services that we provide in our district. And then the latest news, one of my student support counselors, she was not able to be here tonight, Christina Shaw, has been asked to be a member of the TEA task force for House Bill 906, which is a bill studying and evaluating mental health services that's funded by the state, such as House Bill 3 you mentioned earlier tonight, educator training, and the impact of mental health services. So I'm very excited that we have a member from our district who will represent us in the state. And there are multiple folks from across the state. So I'm very excited that our administration, including Dr. Kelly, is supporting Christina in this effort. And here are 6 student support counselors. I don't think I've shown you a picture of them recently, but 4 of them are here tonight. Melissa McDavid at Turner's unable to be here, and of course Christina's unable to be here, but they stood right there behind you and took this picture. They're very proud and excited that they have this particular position, and they absolutely enjoy what they do every day because they get to support and serve kids. So a couple of stories I received from the counselors, and I just want, when I come in front of you, I always like to share a couple of stories. And so hopefully I can make those brief, and hopefully I can share them with fidelity that I received from the counselors. So my first story is a female student. She was in 7th grade last year. She's currently in 8th grade. What's interesting is she was really not one that was referred by a teacher or anyone. She just happened to see this counselor in the hallway, so she decided to stop by the counselor's office just to check in. So this was spring of 7th grade, and she told the counselor, because she looked nice. When the counselor was in the hallway, she said, you look nice. So she just wanted to stop by and say hello. But as time progressed, she started to reveal some things that were going on. This is a wounded child. This is a child that has a very bad home life, was unwanted, unloved. Her father's in jail. The women in her life was not supportive, mom, aunt, grandmother. But you wouldn't have known that. This is a child that didn't tell anyone, but she chose to talk with the counselor who looked nice. And so they developed a relationship. She felt loved by this counselor, so she continued to just check in, just to say hello. Walks by the office, hello, and move on, just to see that friendly face every day. But she did have another person in her life at that campus, and she also loved her English teacher. So in her life at school, she has two for sure that she trusts unconditionally and that they love her non-judgmentally, because when she goes home, she continues to feel that unloved, that unwanted. So we are making a difference. As educators, we are making a difference. And so the counselor told me she's going to make sure when the student transitions to high school at the end of the school year, she will be sure to talk with the high school counselor and let her know, or him know, that this child will need to continue that relationship throughout high school as well. So we're making a difference. And then story number 2 is a high school student, a 10th grade student. Student's been in trouble, been sent to ALA, caught with vaping. Student has been in fights, lots of anger issues. In fact, the student was referred by the assistant principal to the student support counselor at ALA, who proceeded with this student, working with her through restorative practices, showing her positive coping skills, and just teaching her that, you know, these are things you can do rather than put up a fist or fight or cuss, because this student is known to cuss at teachers as well. And so one incident, a lot of her friends encouraged her to skip school, but she didn't. She didn't because she had an appointment with her counselor that day, and she didn't want to miss that appointment. How awesome is that? That student found the importance in making sure that she did not miss someone who she knew cares about her. So to continue the story, the student is no longer in ALA. She's back on her campus, main home campus. And what the student support counselors do is they do what's called a re-entry welcome. So the counselors set up a meeting. As you know, we have a student support counselor at the high school campuses. And so from ALA to the Turner, Dawson, or Pearland, they set up a re-entry welcome. They have a meeting. Student support counselor meets the student. So now this 10th grade student goes to see the campus counselor and checks in. And it's a place for her to cool down and feel safe. So as you can see, we're working together to kind of transition the kids wherever they are, because that's one of my goals, is to make sure we all communicate and collaborate and really care for kids wherever they are. And so I've said this before, daily school counselors are on alert for distressed students and staff, and there's no 2 days that are the same in the life of a school counselor, whether they have the student support counselor role or a professional school counselor role. All of our roles, we're all mental health professionals on the campus. And so that's part of the fun, but that's also part of the challenges as well. And then I just want, you know, counselors are not really good at tooting their own horn. And so I just want to highlight a couple of events. Know that Everything that counselors do on the campus, I can't highlight in one evening, but they do a lot. And I know you guys have visited the campuses. You've seen the things that's on the walls, just the awesome things near the counselor's offices. So the next time you visit a campus, notice all of those wonderful things that they've put up just to show kids that they care and that help is available. So just this last Thursday night at Dawson High School, the Wings of Dawson students, the students, came up with this idea with the support of Ms. Frazier, the student support counselor there who's supporting them. They wanted to put on an event, a self-care event for 8th grade students. So this flyer was sent to all 8th grade parents to invite them. I was there. I was so impressed by all of the students. Ms. Frazier did an excellent job of prepping the students, making sure they knew things needed to be evidence-based, research-based, so that when someone went to their table, they were able to respond. So for an example, and it was such a neat experience for me to be able to talk with the kids at each table and for them to tell me why this particular activity is helpful to them. And so for example, there was a table that had coloring markers and mandalas. And I asked the students, what does this mean and what does this do for you? One student proceeded to tell me about the research-based evidence about the importance of coloring and just spending time with friends. And so what they do is they sit, and there was a group of them. They sat, they colored, and they talked. I saw no phones out, which is pretty amazing. Like, they actually colored. In fact, one young lady came up. She said, you know, we can create our own mandalas too. You want me to show you? I said, of course. So she showed me. And then she's like, you can color this too. Just phenomenal things like that. And there were probably, I don't know how many tables. Ms. Frazier, was there about a dozen? But 13, all students. And then she also had a session for parents so that their 8th grade students were able to go visit with the high school students. So this is the first of its kind, so I hope that this will continue as well. It's just high school students trying to connect with their younger future peers that's coming up to the high school. So I was very pleased and excited about that. Of course, at the Pay Center in September, I think Ms. Carbone, you might have been there as a guest speaker, sharing your story. And so events like this are helpful to the kids and to the staff to connect with those who have gone through some experiences. In fact, at PACE, Ms. Sotelo recently put on a self-care event on one of the professional development day for staff, and that was very well received as well. And so all of the counselors on all levels are trying to do great things for students and for staff to help everyone better cope with just the stuff of life, you know, the stress of life. So I have 52 counselors, as you can see there, serving over 21,700 students, depending upon the day. It changes daily. 23 high school, 10 junior highs, and that includes my 2 student support counselors at the junior highs, 2 middle schools, and 11 elementary schools. And you all know the size of the elementary schools. There's only 1 counselor at each campus. So that's just something to keep in mind as well. And you're very interested in the guidance module data, so I did bring some to you, plus some. I know you wanted some additional data. So as you can see here, just from August through Christmas break, counselors, that's 52 counselors, and I don't think this number is overall, it's low. Because like I said, it's based on data that counselors entered. And we're only going into year 2 of full implementation. So I'm hoping the data will be much better as the years progress. That's almost 25,000 occurrences of visits with students. That's incidences. And I'll show you some data on the number of students in the next few slides. Self-esteem, suicidal ideation. Look at the attempt, 9. That's 9 more than what we want. And that's at all levels. And that's the scary part. That's not just secondary level. That includes elementary and middle as well. Stress, that's very high. And it probably is higher. Anxiety, perfectionism, I mean, there could be many causes for perfectionism because there's a lot of social media use, comparisons, and things like that. We can philosophically talk about those things for many hours. Emotional regulation. This is where a student just stops in, says hello, I need a cool down, I need a little break. It could be a number of reasons related to emotional regulation where they just need a minute to cool down. General check-in in the thousands. This is just a student needing to see a face, a friendly face, just to say hello for a few minutes so they can move forward with their day. It is so important that they have that person in their life to be able to have that non-judgmental feeling of, you care about me, I see you, I can go on now with my day and do my thing. Depression, grief. We have a lot of grieving kiddos. We're not talking about staff. These are not staff numbers, but we have grieving staff as well. The good news with the teacher request numbers is that more teachers are seeing the need to refer students to counselors. That means that they are paying attention, they're observing, and that they're allowing students to receive help. So that's awesome. So on that note, that means the counselors are doing a good job of teaching the teachers on noting the signs of a students who might be in distress. Anger management, the stuff of life that the kids bring to school that they don't know how to deal with, they don't know how to positively cope, turns into something negative that could turn into something like anger. So I just wanted to share these with you. A number of visits by levels. So as you can see here, high school, that's not surprising that high school visits are so high. We have a lot of high school students, but we also have a lot of students with needs, with academic planning too, so it's not just emotional. Junior high, middle, elementary. And notice, I wanted to give you this stats, that 19% of those almost 25,000 visits were by student support counselors. So what you all approved 2 years ago is making a difference, and I wanted to share that with you. That means that more students are making connections. So here are some numbers that includes number of students that are being seen. So for example, the blue, when you look at the bar chart, the blue is the number of students met with a counselor. So elementary, you can see the percentage there. The first column, entered, that's the number of students that a counselor entered. And then enrolled, that's the number of students as of January 10th. So I had to have a cutoff date to complete the chart. So that's the number of students at the elementary level, those 11 campuses. As you can see here, 13% of the students were being seen. Middle, 46%. Junior high, 53%. High schools, 46%. These numbers are not surprising, but know that we are only in year 2 of full implementation. So I can see in the future higher percentages in terms of making sure that we see and the counselors are noting every student that they see. But also, I want you to keep in mind that we have other mental health professionals in our district who are seeing the students, like LSSPs, for example. They're not in this number. So we do have LSSPs who are providing counseling services to our students. We have assistant principals who may be seeing the students. So those numbers are not noted here. So I want you to keep that in mind when you see these percentages and it's not closer to 100. There are students who are being seen by other adults on their campus. And so when you look at the response to intervention, this tier type of model, of course, 80 to 90% are your guidance curriculum type of interventions. This is your whole campus type of interventions, your whole classroom type of interventions, and as you move up the tier, the 5 to 15%, that's when you look at individual counseling, you look at small group. And then when you move up the tier to tier 3, by that time, they might have been referred to our partner agencies or to more long-term care. So as you can see with these types of tier approach, and we use this approach in other areas of our district as well. So in the state of Texas, school counselors are the only group of people in which we have our own job description. This is our job description right here. And this was updated in 2018. And within this book provides us guidelines to make sure we are providing these 4 components to our students. And that's the guidance curriculum, responsive services, individual planning, and system support. So we actually have a Texas education code that defines our job description. And many people don't know that, but I wanted to be sure to let you know that in case you don't. And so they do have recommendations according to our guidelines and our job description. So at the elementary level, the guidance curriculum, that's your whole group. That's your, when you present to either the whole school or a classroom. Of course, elementary counselors do more of that. They do more of a teaching type of style of counseling. And so you see 40%. And what I did was I took the average. So within our book, it gives a range. Individual planning is much lower. It's more like 5 to 10%, something like that. That's normal for elementary because they're doing more whole group. Responsive services is still high as the need arises. And then, of course, system support, that is the foundation of everything we do at all levels. Middle and junior high, the state lumps the middle and junior high into one, but I'd like you to notice that individual planning increases, responsive service is still within that range, but still high there, and then the guidance curriculum still continues. We still need to provide the whole campus or classroom support. Then high school, individual planning, responsive services totally goes up, and that is not surprising. We should be doing that. We should be meeting the needs of kids individually. And individual planning includes academic as well. As you know, high school counselors have a lot of responsibilities related to graduation requirements, and it's only going up. And you all have heard about the new rule related to financial aid, FAFSA, TASFA requirements in the future. This is for the class of 2022. Now that students are required to complete financial aid application. So I'm only saying that, and in that they're still forming committees and to give us more direction. I'm only saying that because this is more demanding for high school counselors in terms of what they have to keep up with. On the transcript, currently the bills, this update indicates it has to go on the transcript as well. So more catching up with kiddos to make sure they're applying for financial aid for college. Community partnerships. We've had some wonderful community partnerships in our district, and I only hope that it will grow. I wish we had a CIS at all of our campuses, but we don't. I mean, they have different requirements, but that would be so helpful. Youth and family counseling services, they are so busy. In fact, I contacted the director and just asked her for some general numbers of how many Pearland ISD students they're seeing since the beginning of the school year. She said 84. That's 84 long-term patients. When you consider the number of therapists they have at their agency, we are their largest clients with youth and family counseling services. And so we're having to work through some procedural things, but they are really supporting us, and their ability to come onto our campus with parent approval, administrator, counselors working with them and everything, that's been very helpful. Recently, for our 5th through 8th grade campus, we have partnered with Bay Area Council on Drugs and Alcohol. And as you have seen the statistics, I brought one statistic with me from Texas Youth Tobacco Survey in 2018. it said that 330,000 youths reported vaping in Texas, and that's 13%. That's very alarming. And so I'm very thankful that we have chosen to partner with Bakota, who is now housed in Pearland. They are here for the next 4.5 years. They normally move every 5 years with their state grant funding. So hopefully, with that partnership, right now, we have a youth prevention specialist who just focuses on our district, on our 8 middle school and junior high campuses, and she's here full-time, providing staff, parent, and student presentations, and they also have a positive action curriculum in which students can be referred to them in small groups, and they will provide these sessions to teach kids how to make positive choices. So that's a plus for us to have that option for our students and our families. Counseling Connections for Change, unfortunately, has ended. They partnered with us based on Hurricane Harvey and the grant funding that they received from Hurricane Harvey, but those grant fundings are no longer available. So we've had to end that partnership for now. That doesn't mean we won't pick up later if we do get some funds in the future in other ways. Through the McKinney-Vento grant, we have been receiving grief recovery specialist support. That's Susanna Morel. At this point, the funds are running out, so she only has at least a couple more schools that she's finishing out. But we're always looking. I know Ms. Carter mentioned grants and all of that. I'm always working with our grant writer in the district to see what else we can do, because we do want to offer services free to our students and our families, but that may not be the case all the time. And so our mental health agencies in the area continues to want to try to work with us, but funding is always an issue. And then one of the things you also wanted to hear from me was, and I'd like to share with you kind of our goals. In alignment with what we shared in December, these are goals and performance objectives that you approved in December. And so I brought this in just to say that, you know, Pearland ISD will support the physical and mental, but for my part, it's the mental health of all students and staff. That is very, very important. I'm not going to read all of it to you because you've seen it before, but number 2, analyze current programs and develop vertically aligned social and emotional health curriculum and provide for delivery of curriculum to students, staff, and parents as appropriate. The counselors are doing a phenomenal job with Coffee with the Counselors at different times of the day. They're trying to make it work for parents, and not just in the mornings, maybe at different times. Donuts and a Dialogue at Pearland High School. We're trying to provide and offer more sessions with youth mental health first aid. We do have 3 instructors in our district who can provide that. We have been receiving free participant manuals from the University of Houston at Clear Lake because they received a sizable SAMHSA grant in which they can provide free participant manuals to us, so that's a big benefit. Normally it's $20 per manual cost to the participant. And so we will continue that partnership, but they will have this grant for about 2 more years, is what I've been told. So we want to offer as many sessions as possible while they have the grant for a couple of more years. The student support counselors in number 4, I hope you have seen, did I move ahead? I think I moved ahead. Oh, I'm on performance objective number 4. I'm on the next slide. You're probably wondering, what is she talking about? Number 4, I hope you've seen the quarterly electronic newsletters that the student support counselors have created. It's really neat. They pull together all 6 of them and just come up with some different resources to share with our staff and our families that we send out. So these are just a couple of items that I want to point your way, because I know you might have questions for me and you might bring some other topics up, but I just want to kind of briefly share with you, we are doing a lot to make sure that we are supporting our students and our staff. And then this next slide, you all know this already, and I know Dr. Kelly, Mr. Moody, and others, you know we have the need, and so we would like to, I mean, it's not my place to request, but Dr. Kelly did say that he would like to request at some point, maybe. So I put it in there, just in case, for your pleasure to think about. This next slide might take a little bit because I did do some research, and I know that this particular topic is very important to you because you want what's best for our kids. And you've brought up screeners before, but I'd like for you to consider different options, and that's why I didn't go into detail. So let's start with the bottom, our ultimate goal. Our ultimate goal is to meet our mission, vision, and core beliefs. And so our mission, we believe students come first, right? We all believe that. That's why we do what we do, and that's why you choose to donate your time as you do. But we need time to build relationships individually with students. We believe all learners are unique, valuable, and teachable. So we need to set those high academic standards and instill emotional safety while at school. So that's my piece. I believe in high academic standards, but we need to make sure they feel safe so that they can learn. Is that idea of getting to their heart before they, before they'll listen to you, heart and then head? We believe a successful education includes engaged students, staff, families, and community. And you've heard me the last couple of years say, it takes a village. I got it in, right here. It does take a village. It takes all of us. So let's talk about some screening options. And I have spoken with several different people, professionals in the industry, so I'd like to share with you kind of their thoughts. One, looking at the feasibility of screeners. And notice I'm not saying mental health screeners because there's another type of screener. It's social emotional learning screener. Because when you say mental health screening, there's a lot of cons that come with that. And we talked about this back in the December board meeting. Not just the cost, but the intervention, the staff that's needed to intervene. What if? So the mental health screener normally does ask about questions related to suicide. And so therefore you have to be very careful. And then the other piece to that is, people are very litigious these days too. And so we've got to make sure we examine our documents carefully before we even give students the option to take a mental health screener. Whereas the SEL screener is a little bit different. The focus is on resilience and taking a positive action toward a particular whatever. And so we're looking at, the SEL screener is looking at a student's resilience level and how can we help them better cope with whatever's going on with them. And so we have more time to kind of get to them if they fall within a 5% range. So all of the research I've read, all of the documents that's out there right now, they say that with screeners, and we've been concerned about, what if 50% of however many we screen comes back and we can't intervene? Well, all the research so far, that doesn't mean it's all-inclusive, says that your most high-risk students from these screeners are probably around 5%. And then it goes down to about 6% and 11%. So you're talking about maybe a 20% of your total number of students. And so some options to think about. I've spoken with Dr. Ryan Hill. You've heard about the LEAD program with the Baylor College of Medicine. His particular, he has a screener, but his is more of an education piece. It is more individualized modules. So students are screened in their first session, and then they have a few modules that they follow after that. So it's on an individual self-paced based. His is still free, And he recently received a grant in which he can provide online training to the individual who will administer the modules to the students. So that's more of your SEL screener. Screening for the students, teaching them about how to take positive actions, coping skills, thinking about their life. And then being able to explain it to, let's say, a counselor. Because I've had my student support counselors kind of look at the training and kind of get their thoughts. Time is always the issue. We are in spring semester. I understand academics and STAR testing is coming. All that is so very, very important. We know that. So time is always of the essence, is when do we? When do we? And the mental health screener, there's limited evidence of effectiveness. And so there are many out there, but researchers have not been able to show us their effectiveness. In fact, what they've been showing us is that there's not enough data to continue and explore. In fact, I spoke with Dr. Shanding, who is an associate professor of UHCL in the psychology department. He created a screener recently that he partnered with Sheldon ISD, and he is currently partnering with Alvin ISD. And he sold his screener to a company, so it's probably not going to be free too much longer. But he said there's not a lot of data out there that really supports mental health screening. His is more of the SEL screener, where you are learning about the student's resiliency level, and in terms of the litigiousness of parents kind of coming back and saying, why didn't you get to my child quickly? Well, we're just testing how the students are dealing with life at that point. And what's good about his particular screener is he has a teacher screen the student, so thinking about the student, how would you rate the student? He also has a parent component where a parent can rate their student. And then there's the student component where they rate themselves. And so he and his team gathers all that data about that student and then lets the campus knows what their findings are. And so that's kind of how he collects his data. Just some other issues. We've got to think about all students. Not all of these screeners have them translated in other languages. Right now, it's in English. So how will we work with all students in our district who speaks other languages and reads other languages? Because more than likely, if they're able to take a screener in their language, there might be more truth that comes out of that, possibly. I don't know. But those, I'm just sharing all these with you for your consideration. And so one thing that Dr. Shanding and Dr. Ryan Hill spoke with me about is you can start with a screener. Either way you go, we should do something in the schools. They say that schools are not doing enough at this point, but research also says that 80% of all the mental health support that students receive come from the school. And so 80%. And we still have parents who are resisting mental health support even when we refer them to a partnering agency, not just a referral list. They just refuse to sign the form to say, yes, we will receive free counseling. So we've got all the stigma still going attached to mental illness because they don't want that stigma related to them or their family. So I don't know what the answer is, but what I do know is what we're doing here in Pearland ISD is helping. Whatever we do in the classroom, in the office, on the campus, whether it's campus-wide, classroom-wide, or just in an office, we're making a difference. Because at this point, I told you last year, our goal was 0. We met that goal last year. My goal will be 0 every year because we don't want to lose another life. And so everything we do needs to focus on that 0. And so the question is, are we catching every student, and are we doing everything we can? So I'm pleading for my department to say, you know, we want to help, we want to serve, and we're doing a lot already, and we want to continue doing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, who would like the floor first?
I'll start.
Okay.
Sure. I thank you for the report. It's awesome, very thorough. You know, I've been asking. Well, first off, I want to ask the counselors out there, get them engaged a little bit. How much of a difference on y'all's side have y'all seen on the student support counselors? A regular counselor, I shouldn't say regular, that's so rude. Okay, student support counselors and counselors. I'm sorry, I apologize. You know, are you seeing a big difference on the campuses with the kids in general? I mean, like, are they gravitating to want to go see those counselors for help? Or, I mean, anybody speak up.
And if you would come on up to the mic,
Yeah.
no worries.
Just want some feedback.
So I'm at the PACE Center.
Okay,
And what I
awesome.
can say is that we serve ALA and the kids that are by choice.
Uh-huh.
When I'm seeing kids in ALA, because they're at a point where the only way to go is up sometimes, and I'm right across the hall, I'm getting kids that have never been seen. And then facilitating that with the home campus and doing those reentry restorative circles. So, you know, when I came here, I was the only one at that time, and the role has transformed. This is year 3 for me. But I can tell you that last year when the other counselors came on, it was transformative to the work that we're doing here with our kids. We're networking, we're meeting. This year, next month, we're having a mental health conference, and kids are being heard, they're being seen, they're referring each other, they're bringing their friends. Hey, this is Miss Sotelo, you need to talk to her. I'm not at the massive campus, they're massive
Yeah,
compared to PACE,
sure.
but I can see the difference with the ALA kids because we're transitioning them over and they're having access. So.
Thank you. You know, and you know, I've been on the board 7 years, and I've always pushed from day one something along these lines, and I'm just so excited to see what y'all are doing. I mean, because it's helping every kid. You know, I've always questioned and just wondered in my own head, you know, does the word mental health, does it have a negative connotation? It's like when you talk about mental health, sometimes, like, and I'm talking about the 80%ers, right? There's 10% here, 10% that are getting these two programs. And I always talk about in the education process when I was a teacher, the 80%ers. And does those so-called regular kids, if you will, do they look at the word mental health counselor or the word mental health as being, oh, I don't have a problem, or parents for that matter. My kid doesn't have any mental health problems. Because it always, when you say mental health, the next word comes after that is what? Problems. And so I've always wondered about that, you know, question if that in fact can draw people, not draw to it, but push them away. Does that make sense what I'm asking?
It does make sense, and that goes back to that stigma that's attached to mental illness or mental
Yeah.
health problems. And then that's part of what we're trying to do is to decrease that stigma.
Good evening. I just want to add also to that statement that it is interesting because, you know, you said that majority of the students do get their mental health support from the school. We'll have parents call all the time, at least my office, and we'll say, hey, can you help my student with A, B, or C? And, you know, we'll go through our steps, but when it gets to a point where it's time to refer, because we don't have the opportunity truly to do that one-on-one counseling that might be necessary for that particular situation, and we either have our list or we use some of our resources that we have that are free. There's always a silence that gets on the other end of that phone or the other end of the desk, because now it's getting real when I'm asking you to go see an actual therapist, and it's outside my realm as a professional school counselor. So I would say yes, that negative stigma definitely does exist. It's okay to come see Mr. Dixon because he's just that guy at school. but to get that next level, to really hit what's necessary, that I'm not afforded to do based on the time of all the things that Mrs. Moore has already shown for everybody, they don't want it.
And you know, I worry, you know, my daughter's very, very best friend, moons ago, ended her life, and she just seemed like a regular child, a regular student. I've known her for a long time, and she was one of those 80, what you would call an 80%er. You would not see anything. But at that point, I wonder, even if we had the student support counselors at that time, would she have ever reached out because of, oh, I don't need any help because I don't need that. But
I'm glad you brought that up, because in my conversation with Dr. Shanding, he said it's interesting when he looked at like a teacher screening a student or a parent screening a student, their perspective is different than the actual student being screened. So they're finding in his research that a lot of the advanced kids who seemingly looks like they have their act together, they need support. And so that's where we're talking about going to that next level of support. We've got counselors seeing students who are being referred to them, but what about the students who are not saying anything, but they may need the support? They may look like they have it all together, but they may not. They just need that additional, maybe teach them how to cope. And I think that the counselors can probably say it better in terms of the students that they're seeing on a regular basis as well. Y'all want to say anything related to that, maybe advanced students?
Well, I was just going to say that there is a stigma with the word mental health, right? But we very rarely use that on campus. We talk about mental wellness all the time. The student support counselors, we call each other student support counselors, not mental health counselors. And so there is no negative connotation coming to see us. They just learn, oh, when my regular counselor can only see me for 5 or 10 minutes because she has 400 other students to see, I can go see Ms. Frazier, my student support counselor, and spend some more time dealing with whatever's happening in our life.
you know, I 4 kids, you know, they're all going to have some issues. And I would hope one day Crystal, Jeff, Michael Floyd, Charles Gooden, Sean Murphy, if they went to them and asked them for advice, they would give them some sound advice, regardless of who it is, because you said the village, right? And so to reinforce what I'm already giving them, hopefully these people up here would do it, and they would feel safe to go to someone on campus. And that's what I guess my whole vision would be for any student. Hopefully it's and get to a point where it's inviting enough for just anybody. Hey, look, I got to go. To make that quick little something in the back of my brain's telling me I need to go talk to somebody or somebody else. So like if I see Jeff's got some problems, and I know he's got problems, but I need to go report Jeff for his problems, and I should already reported him by now, but I'm joking.
No, that's exactly what we've been trying to do with, you know, the Suicide Prevention Task Force. And I think this year, I feel like the kids might want to change that particular name, because it's not just suicide we're focused on.
Absolutely.
We're focusing on mental wellness, as Ms. Frazier said. And so that's up for consideration when we have our first district meeting with the students and others from the campus and the community.
Can I ask you a question along
Thank
those
you.
lines?
I'm done. Thank you, Crystal.
I will ask suicide prevention teams. Is there any current training given to the students that are involved in those suicide prevention teams?
Yes, just Ms. Frazier, come tell them what you've been doing at Dawson.
The Jason Foundation provides free training, and so all of the Wings of Dawson students were trained in the Jason Foundation, which teaches them about signs and how to refer somebody for help. And so they are kind of our eyes and ears on campus, and if somebody needs help, they direct them either to me or they get in touch with me and say, I think the student needs to get some help. At Turner, Miss McDavid did the same thing. She combined the Jason's Foundation with another one. And so all of her students have been trained as well. So that was one of our goals this year, was to make sure that if you are going to claim to be on the Suicide Prevention Task Force, we've got to be able to make sure that you can do something to help somebody if they need help.
So I've seen some systems that the students that are a part of those committees actually like wear buttons, like you can plug into me, or I mean like suicide prevention team or whatever their names are, so that other students around campus can identify easily who those students are. Is there anything implemented?
There's nothing implemented. That has been discussed. We have some kids that create buttons and stickers, and so that's been brought up in a couple of meetings in T-shirts. So we have Wings of Dawson T-shirts when we do things, but and Pearland has your shirts. So they don't wear them every day, right? But we have talked about some different things for events specifically, what they can wear to identify themselves.
Cool. Did you have something from PHS? I noticed you got up to.
Oh, I was gonna.
Come on. Yeah.
Add on to
Come on.
Mike's question. I was just gonna say that I think there has been a shift in that stigma. A lot of my referrals now come from other kids bringing their friends in, or teachers, like Chinda said, noticing that something needs to be addressed with that kid, and so they'll send me an email or come by and visit me and say, hey, these are my list of kids I'd like for you to follow up with. So I think there's a shift.
That's
It's
great.
happening.
Yeah, because I was going to say to Sean and Charles, of the kids that are of this age, when they have this thing right here, you know, there's kids will make statements, and they're kind of bold statements, and they're kind of hidden at times, right? And so, but their friends know it's a little bit out of the norm. That's not
Right.
a normal statement to that.
Right.
But I know with me having children that age, and Charles is probably going through it here in a little bit, but that's what happens with these kids is their friends can, and I talk to my kids about it all the time. Hey, if you see something out of the norm, it's
And we try to teach them through advisory lessons and things of that nature. You know, the signs, we do every September, we do that, signs and things to look for. But I feel like more and more kids are saying, my friend needs help, or I need
That's
help.
awesome.
And parents, like you said, parents are not feeling any, hesitation to call and say, could you please see my son or daughter?
that's important.
Yeah.
Too. Wow.
Right.
Sorry, just starting, like, I'm elementary, right?
Yeah.
So you just start very age appropriate at elementary. So I'm talking to kids about that when I'm doing classroom guidance. And I'm saying age appropriately, right? Like, so we're here to be safe. We're going back, we started all the PBIS lessons, talking about safe, respectful, responsible. And so that's all terminology that we're implementing at that level, and it's helping. And so I hope by the time they get to their level, it's just gonna help support all the way over. So I'm seeing success at this.
Before we get off that topic, I think it's very interesting when we talk about social media. I know that we monitor as a district, we monitor social media tweets if they're threatening to our campus. Is there any similar, or I don't even know if it's a thing yet, but similar program for monitoring alarming statements from students about their mental health? I know it must be difficult, but.
Well, with what we have right now, it does monitor all of those alarming statements that
Okay.
there's 4 of us in the district who get those alerts.
And so,
say most of those alerts, Michael, the ones that Chinda and I've seen, we talk to each other. She'll see one or I'll see one, and it's more mental health related.
Right.
Or mental, a kid crying out for something about something than it is for a threat to it.
really, okay.
Yes.
And so then you will go, or someone on that staff will go and find that
Yes.
student, bring them in, and have a conversation?
Oh, yes, and we've done that the last couple of years where I've called the campus and say, we saw something on social media, would you check on this student? Or like I did that with Dawson, I think last year when I called on Jessica Frazier and said, I think I see something related to this junior, but I'm not sure. It had something to do with body image at the time, and so Ms. Frazier was able to check in on that student. So we do investigate and see if it's our student. In fact, one time there was a student that was in another district that's not even our student, that we were able to find out which high school that student attended, and we called.
That's fantastic.
Why not? We're here to help and save all kids, and we were able to do that.
Talking about social media, kids reading other kids' social media, then report it.
Yeah.
Even on the weekend, we
And so we start that training in elementary school now. I'm assuming that if you see something that your friend's posting, because there's elementary kids now on social media tweeting about, God knows what, but I think that if you're starting now, I mean, in 10 years, it's going to be incredible, the community support of the students.
Yeah, I mean, see something, say something, teaching teachers the warning signs, teaching the kids to make sure they tell and really learn how to protect themselves and each other. I mean, I've had instances at elementary campuses where, I mean, just last semester, a student's friend told her aunt about a situation that was happening to this other student. And we were able to intervene, get law enforcement involved. So that was, I mean, it was a sad situation, but we were able to intervene, early enough, like in 3rd grade. So it didn't, fester and continue on into later that it could manifest into some other mental illnesses or mental health problems. Because it could manifest, and as you know, into the secondary levels if we don't catch or treat early on.
So along those lines, talking about the elementary students, the numbers that you presented are pretty staggering there. I mean, you're saying that about 1,000 students are getting seen 5 times the rate than at your other levels, basically. Like at middle school, you're only seeing 1,500 students coming in to see the counselor at 2,300 visits. And at elementary, you have 1,000 students being seen for 5,000 visits.
So let me clarify that. Go back to the classroom guidance. And so when counselors enter classroom guidance, it's for the class that they're seeing. So the numbers could be skewed a little bit because every student that's in that class does pop up. So that's where you're kind of seeing those high numbers.
Okay.
And that's where I was really stressing that classroom guidance piece for elementary level.
Okay, so those number of visits are maybe skewed for the classroom
Because
guidance
of the
piece.
universal,
Okay.
yes,
Okay.
classroom guidance lessons.
So can we talk a little bit about the elementary students? I'm hearing from teachers that there's a shift and change in what they're seeing in the classrooms as far as what students are like now. Can counselors talk a little bit about what they're seeing from their perspective?
Both can come up together. Come on, Rosie. Come on, Sissy. They're in the trenches, so they can tell you more.
I appreciate that.
So, clarify a little more. What?
I guess the word that keeps getting used from teachers is kids are just different now. They have different needs. They're more demanding. The way I'm like thinking about that is that they need more instant gratification and they're needing more feedback more frequently, and the outbursts and behaviors are extended or they're more aggressive than they used.
I agree. Kids are different. I think parents are different. Parenting techniques are different. Technology is different. They have the phones, they have the tablets, the interactions are different. It's like different than when I was growing up, right? Because we interacted. Now parents give them the tablet. You go to dinner. How often do you see out at dinner? Here, just get on this tablet. We don't interact. We don't talk. They don't. So yes, things are different nowadays than they were when I grew up. I think expectations at home are different. And so when you get in the classroom and parents will tell you, well, they don't act like that at home. Well, no, they don't act like that at home. Put them in a classroom with 22 other kids. And then they have to attend a task. And not everything is animated. And so yes, kids are different nowadays. And
So you're feeling the stress in your career.
Oh, definitely.
Based on.
Yes, definitely. Kids are different. And it doesn't mean that they can't learn. I feel like you set the expectation at school. And so you can have different expectations at home than you do at school, right? This is what we do at school. It is different than what you do at home. So they have to learn. You have to teach them. That's social skills, right? You have to teach them. That might be okay at home, but that's not okay at school.
And that's part of the guidance curriculum they provide of
because, we have our little ones, and a lot of times when we are talking to them, we can ask them questions about, well, what do you do in the evenings? They each go to their room, and they have their dinner, and they get to play video games. And it's interesting to hear what type of video games they're playing. Obviously, a lot of them are not age appropriate. You could even just go to a restaurant. A lot of times you see a family sitting at a table and everybody's on their phone, like nobody's talking. And so a lot of times we're teaching this, the little ones, the simple social skills to talk, to be able to share, to be able to just see each other. And I think, we have that one-on-one with them, and there's no interruptions, there's nothing, and so they get that one-on-one with us. And so they might have some older siblings that they're learning those behaviors from. It just could be social media, but so we want to just offer that one-on-one for them and just support them. So it's not only at the high school level, we're seeing it at our level. My campus is pretty large, and so I'm pretty busy with a lot of my little ones that I have, but I want to be able to just tell them, you're valuable, you're important to me, I'm listening, I'm here.
Thank you guys for that feedback. I appreciate it.
Anyone else like the floor? All right, I'm gonna add just a couple other things about the counseling connections for change. As far as losing them as a partner through funding, are we seeing kids that are not being able to be seen somewhere else, or
The increase for youth and family,
That's where it's
they're
going. Okay.
moving toward that, and then with the student support counselors, they're able to provide, more individual and small group. But if it's more long-term therapy, they do continue to refer to youth and family, or they'll give the parents our resource list for other agencies in the area.
Okay.
But yes, partnering with Counseling Connections for Change has been a huge support. But like I said, it was for Hurricane Harvey, mainly small groups, but it's now 2.5 years into that. And so I'm looking at other ways maybe to partner.
Okay, and your recommendation, I guess, would be on the screenings, would be to go towards a social emotional health screening versus what they call the mental health screening.
I would, because of all the kind of the cons that's related to mental health. And then the other piece that I didn't mention is getting parent support. Because parents can't opt out of anything that we offer to the kids. And research does show that parents, when they see mental health screening, it's that whole stigma of, why are you screening my child? They're fine. And so that's why I'm saying maybe moving toward the SEL first. And this is where Dr. Shanding talks about that tier support, is you get that top 5% that's high risk. You put interventions in, and then you find if there's an additional need. And then from that need, we can put in additional supports, like an additional mental health screener just for those specific groups, but it's not universal. Okay. And so we can do something like that, more of a layered approach. But in terms of SEL screeners, that would be more of if we do go toward the screening route, I would say that would catch a whole lot more students that may need some coping skills. But then it also decreases some of those cons that we're concerned about in terms of the staff support, the intervention piece. Because Dr. Shanding told me that with his SEL screener specifically, it may take a week to screen a specific group to just get to as close to 100% as possible of that group, especially if we're having teachers screen and then parents as well. And he said it'll take like 1.5 minutes. It's not a long screener, but it tells a lot. And then his team will process. It'll take a couple of weeks, gives us back the results, tells us who we need to intervene, and then we can work out some sort of partnership in terms of an intervention strategy to help those kids. So this is just the beginning discussion, but if we are to move that route, that would be my suggestion is the SEL screener, and then eventually in a smaller population, build in that mental health screener or some sort of suicide screener. There's a lot of screeners out there, but I would rather work with a professional in the field who's done a lot of research, like Dr. Shanding or Dr. Hill, who has a lot of these resources that can help us and partner with us.
All right. If there's nothing else, thank you all so much.
Thank you
We
so
really
much.
appreciate it. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Did you want to say something else, or was that bye? All right, we out of here. All right. Thank you all very much. Yes, yes, yes. We appreciate what you guys do for our students. Okay, that was the report on counseling services. The quarterly investment report and financial statement report are there for your consumption. We are going to go back into executive session. And Ms. Weimer and Mr. Moody, if y'all would join us real quick. At 9:51, we're going to go back into executive session. Convene in open session at 10:39 p.m. Is there a motion from executive session?
I have a motion. I move that we extend the superintendent's contract with amendments discussed in closed session to reflect an effective term of July 1st, 2020 until June 30th, 2023.
Second.
Motion Carbone, second Murphy. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, let's vote. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 4-1 with trustee Floyd voting nay. With no further business to come before the school board, the board will stand adjourned at 10:40 p.m. Thank you for your time.